Good afternoon. We're back in session. This afternoon, we are going to go to Mr. Tim Jex for an update on the constitutionals. I would remind everyone, if you would be kind enough to silence your cell phones, any other electronic devices you have, out of courtesy for the presenters today. Mr. Jex?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Tim Jex with the Office of Management and Budget. I wanted to pull forward one slide that we have included in our general fund section. It's slide number 108, and I think it gives a good snapshot of the top-level view of our general fund. So the first column shows fiscal year 24 adopted budget. If you look into the second column, that's fiscal year 25, so you see we had $20 million in new revenues going into the current fiscal year 25. Of that, $14.6 million went to the constitutional officers, and all other non-constitutional transfers. That includes BCC personnel, BCC operating, projects, and unfunded mandates increased by $7 million, or 4.9%. You'll also see ARPA revenues going into the general fund reducing from 13.8 to 5.9, so we had $355 million in expenditures for fiscal 25. Moving forward to fiscal 26, this is where you see the additional $10.5 million in revenue. So over the 2 years, our general fund revenue has grown by about $30.6 million. For fiscal 26, the constitutional officers requested transfers increased by $18.1 million. And within this is also the tax collector transfer. This represents the amount paid by the general fund. So the presentation this morning, his budget included his fees as well. That's why you saw the $13 million number. The general fund support to the tax collector, it's set by Florida statute. It's a formula based on ad valorem revenues. So total increases to the constitutionals of $18.1 million. And then if you look from fiscal 25 to fiscal 26, all non-constitutional transfers are increasing by $2 million in the general fund. This includes increases for health insurance, increases for unfunded mandates. So this is why we say, while our budget is going up slightly, we did make a lot of cuts to get to this level. And you see in FY26, we'll have no ARPA transfer. So that's how we get to total FY26 expenditures of $381 million, which is a $35 million deficit. And I just wanted to show this to set the tone. Sometimes when you look at the department program budgets, you don't always see this level of reductions. There's different funds in there, there's different projects, but this is a top-level view of our general fund.
Any inquiries?
Yes. So that means in non-fiscal language, coming into this budget from last year, we had $20 million that we took out of reserves to balance the budget last year.
Yes.
We have $10 million of new money this year. So in actuality, it's $20 million that we were talking about that we have a deficit. By including everything that everybody has put in, then it would become a $35 million, which we would have to take out of the reserves. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Simple language.
And I think I know the answer to this, going from my memory. In previous work sessions, budget work sessions, dating back 3 years ago, give or take, and my recollection is the budget office was forewarning that this day was forthcoming, that there would be a deficit to the point where we got into our reserves, we'd be spending down our reserves, and I think what I'm hearing is that time has arrived.
That's correct.
So this is not something that my fellow board members should not have been aware, at least those that were here 3 years ago or so, that this was the forecast, and it's also my understanding since that warning, and we've asked our staff to cut, find efficiencies, and then here recently, we've sent the county manager back, go find more. Is that a fair analogy from the budget office's understanding?
Yes.
Okay.
We've 2 years in a row, the county manager has put out a direction, no increases in base budgets for our BCC departments.
Right. Because I know I was very vocal about reserves and the fact that we should spend down reserves to a certain point, which was a spirited debate amongst myself and my fellow commissioners and staff. So here we are. Commissioner Lockhart.
Well, I think I'm glad we didn't I'm glad you didn't win those spirited debates because we would have even fewer reserves to be pulling from right now. But I just want to make sure that we're clear. That you're not making the implication that we're all acting surprised.
No.
Okay, because
No.
the way that it was phrased made it sound a little bit like, oh, my fellow commissioners shouldn't be surprised by this. I don't think we
Right.
are at all. So
No.
I just wanted to make sure that that wasn't the implication. I think what is a bit of a surprise, and has been, as much as we had a great conversation with the sheriff, and he acknowledges, is that his increases have not been in line with the other constitutionals or with this organization. So while we can control and say, hold the line, if others don't hold the line, we can't do anything about that. So I just wanted to make sure, yes, we knew this was coming. Commissioner Delary did red line, green line repeatedly for many years.
I stopped discussing it because I knew there was no point in discussing it anymore.
It just got to that place. So here we are. And so you're right. You are correct. We saw this. We saw the writing on the wall, and now we have to figure out how we're going to handle it.
Well,
What we
and-
did, but Mr. Chairman, but what we did know, and I think we all, we're pointing it out one way or another, is that in 2 years, we've received $30 million of new revenue, strictly, which is not a lot of increase, but all that money has been taken in one source.
Well,
So anybody else, even if they were straight line, we'd still have to find additional revenue.
correct. And the other thing that none of us could have predicted, including our budget, our folks, is the cost of goods. There was no way of anticipating where that was going to be 3 years ago. The other thing that I think that I've discovered is in the last 3 to 4 years, our development activity in this county has dropped way off. So we have very little new tax base coming on board. And some of that is just a fact of there's not a whole lot left to do in this county except redevelopment activity. But if you go back 5 years ago and move forward to the development activity that has occurred, it's not near, it's continued to drop off each and every year, which is the revenue source in which runs a good portion of this county, even in the cities. So, I don't want to call it the perfect storm, but there's a lot of things that have come to bear pressure upon our budget process.
Also, though, Commissioner Zimbauer, the only revenue that has been consistently going up, thank God, has been the ad valorem. Everything else has been pretty much at a none. And those are other areas. Ad valorem increasing is because, our value, the prices are going up because our value of our land, everybody, wants to live here, value goes up. Thank God, but everything else that's controlled outside of us has been going down or remaining neutral. And that's our real problem. Those revenues are not increasing.
Correct. Exactly. All right. Well, I think we're ready for the fire department. Chief Kinley.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. You're here to cure all of our woes.
We could do that. I'll call a rescue. For the record, Matt Kinley, Fire Chief, Seminole County Fire Department. With me, I have Financial Manager Ryan Schweitzer. He's our Lisa Spriggs and Tim Jex, our math wizard, and also Deputy Chief of Operations Ben DeCure. I believe we're starting off the presentation with Mr. Jex highlighting a few things.
Yeah, so for each of the department presentations, I'll go over a few financial slides, and then we'll turn it over to the director or the chief.
Great.
The fire department's total FY26 budget request is $125.3 million. 96.3% is through our fire MSTU, 3.7% is through the general fund. There's 580 FTEs with no changes going into FY26. This slide shows the total department budget. There's a full line item budget detail for the fire department, which can be found on page 86 of your supplemental package, which is the same report found on page 453 of your work session book. This includes a full budget detail and a list of all projects in the proposed budget. The FY25 budget is $108 million, which is growing by $16 million into FY26. The top section shows base budgets, where 91% is related to personnel services. The $5.6 million variance is based on increases in salaries in the existing collective bargaining agreement. It also includes increases for special risk retirement contributions, overtime, and health insurance. Below, in the project section, CIP is primarily related to fire station construction and renovations, and the increase in fleet from FY25 to 26 reflects a BAR that was done prior to FY25 in order to lock in lower prices and purchase vehicles early. This slide focuses on the fire department's base operating budget. It excludes personnel. It also includes $198,000 in supplies and contracted services that were funded through ARPA in fiscal '25. The base operating budget for the fire department is down $14,000 going into FY26.
So obviously, under Darren's direction, we've made sure to keep ourselves as flat as possible, even a slight decrease. This slide just shows structurally in budget world how we are portioned out. We have Emergency Communications Center, Administration, Operations, and Prevention. Going through the exercise with the seminal moments, one of the ones that we wanted to highlight was the possibility of adjusting the transport fees for residents from outside of the county. Obviously, everybody who lives here is paying the taxes to receive a first-class service, a nationally recognized first-class service. We do have, with the transitional traffic through Seminole County, about 2,500 transports a year of those who live outside of the county. If we were to increase the transport fee to those individuals even by $100, if you go with our 70% collection rate, which is very good for any EMS organization that does transport, we could increase revenue by $175,000 and scale that to whatever would be the pleasure of the board moving into the future. You'll also see in our request some increases in fees for training out at the training center, where we provide to people across the country, and also to our transport mileage. We actually just received this morning an updated spreadsheet of what is the averages out there. We're at $13 a mile, and we're proposing to increase it to $13.73 a mile. That would bring us in line with other organizations. We're not proposing any other increases to the transport fee. We are in line with what would seem to be the averages across Florida. Major projects that we have going on right now, Fire Station 25. Just got an update this morning on the construction manager at risk, and that has made it through purchasing. We should be, or will be, scheduling some pre-construction events here in the next weeks, if not hopefully less than that. If everyone understands, Station 25 is the one that's on the 436 exchange that goes onto Redbug Road, or onto Redbug. I know Commissioner Lockhart's been out there and seen the traffic accidents that almost happen on a regular basis. Very old station from the merger, and we have the property where the new Castleberry Police Headquarters is at. And design is done, permits are done, we're to the end with platting, but looking to move forward with that very soon. Next under that's current is Station 23. That's our oldest station. I know Mr. Horvath used to work there back when it was in the volunteer days.
It's that old?
It's older than I am. And we did acquire the land that's directly across from that station to build the new one, and we'll start design of that in the near future. To the sheriff's point, as you know, we signed a new collective bargaining agreement with our A unit, our firefighters and lieutenants. We were, like the sheriff's office, having some difficulties with recruitment and retention. There was an increase of 15% to the starting salaries to get us into the market. We are in the market with everybody else that's surrounding us within the cities. We're all within a couple of $1,000s of each other. There's still, we're a little bit behind some to the south of us, but we're competitive. And this is a great place to work. It's a great fire department to work at. We've also anxiously awaiting the delivery of our new tactical tanker. That's the one that's going out at Station 42. Four-wheel drive, we're using the Acela model, and Acela is building it for us. We're anxiously awaiting that. That's going to be a great resource for us to hit those rural areas of the county. Significant budget highlights. So traffic blocking vehicles. So you'll see in there a traffic attenuator. Our current practice specifically on I-4, which is the most dangerous thing that we do. Me coming closest to becoming very hurt has been on I-4. The scaredest I've ever been as a lieutenant was on I-4 when I thought one of my personnel got hit. Very dangerous area. Our current practice is we send another unit, usually our $2 million tower truck, to do the blocking. And if you just Google it, you'll see organizations here in Central Florida that have had these apparatus be struck by a vehicle. And not only have you now ruined a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment, but the lead times of 2 to 3 years to get one back, let alone the repair costs, is just, it's not sustainable. So for a relatively small amount of dollars, $250,000, we can get a traffic blocking vehicle that is designed to do that. Doesn't come with any personnel. We're going to treat it much like we do with a witch truck. When the crews go, they take it and do the blocking to keep the crews safe. Out of their fire training center, back quite a few years ago, in the last 5 years, we used to have a living quarters out at the training center. There was a double wide trailer out there that was sprinklered and all the things, where our tanker driver and our Tech 1, our command tech, stayed at for a couple of reasons. One, station or security out at that facility. As having a body out there or a couple of bodies, we have tens of millions of dollars of assets. That's our logistics hub. That's where all of our things are at. That's where the crews come after a call to drop off their gear, to get it cleaned, to restock their trucks when we run out of specific types of equipment. We want to do it right this time and replace that facility that was torn down about 5 years ago with a block structure so that we have living quarters out there that will last for at least 50 years. Everything we build anymore is trying to get that 50 years. That way, we have people out there for security, just eyes, because we have caught people sleeping in apparatus in the past. But even more so, there's somebody on site for those logistical needs to take all of our great equipment, our AMBU bus for mass casualties, our light trailers, our multiple tankers, all these different pieces of equipment that we have to dispatch somebody from another station to come get. Third thing, station security. As you all know, in the Central Florida corridor, here the last couple of years, there's been multiple instances of people breaking into firefighters' vehicles and stealing things out of them. Luckily, we haven't had anybody end up in a station. One of our neighbors to the south did. They actually had somebody that broke into the station while the firefighters were there. That didn't turn out well. Hope to avoid that. We have already implemented security measures at a couple of our stations with lighting, with cameras as deterrents, along with fences as a physical barrier. We're looking to continue to do that into the future, targeting at first our most vulnerable stations, because there's ones that are out in other areas that just aren't as vulnerable as others. So looking at some challenges, in Emergency Communications Center, you'll see that we've deferred the CAD refresh upgrade of about $1.2 million. Our CAD has been scheduled to get an upgrade in 2023-24. Everything is still working very well. So with technology's advice, we're continuing to push that can down the road. $1.2 million is a significant amount of money. You'll see other slight reductions within the comm center to get us at a slight negative, and mostly coming out of training. It hurts a little bit today. If we had to continue doing that going on in the future, it really starts to hurt. That starts to get us behind our training for our people, for sending them to the outside. Not that we don't do the internal stuff, but there's things that they can learn and bring back to us, best practices, going to training outside of the county. Again, a year of doing that, we can manage that. If that continued on, we start to miss out on those best practices that people will learn going to outside training. Inflationary costs are a tremendous part of our challenges. As you'll see, we've obviously kept it to a 0%. We've been able to do that, not necessarily with cuts, but with creating some efficiencies. But just to highlight some of the different levels that we have challenges with, you look at our stations, and we're obviously trying to do some expansion to continue to keep our response times down. When you're looking from 2021 to 2025, construction costs for us have increased by almost 30%. That's a tremendous amount when you're talking about millions of dollars for a fire station. When you start looking at costs, so in comparison 21 to 2025, a rescue truck, our ambulances, in 2021 was $296,000. They're now $443,000, almost a 50% increase. A fire truck from $600,000 to $924,000, almost a 53% increase. The helmet that a firefighter wears from $445,000 to $555,000, a 24% increase. Bunker gear going from $2,200 to $3,500, with the potential of that increasing even more when you start looking at the mandates coming from Tallahassee, which we are in support of. It's firefighter safety, talking about toxic gear. As I know has been brought up here in this room before, the firefighter gear has PFAS in it. We have the safest gear of all the gear that is on the market. There's 3 layers to their bunker gear. You have the outer shell, inner shell, and a vapor barrier in the middle. So the outer and inner don't have PFAS in our gear that we have. The only one that's left is that vapor barrier on the inside, and no one has that product yet. Once they do, and 2 or more manufacturers are able to supply that, we will have to replace that. The law is vague enough that it's being sent to the State Fire Marshal's office for rulemaking authority to figure out what it actually says and when we would have to do it. I know the fire chief's concerns are, is this an immediate, we do it now, or do we do it as the gear begins to be replaced? Much more measured approach. If everybody has to buy it today, it's not going to happen. You're looking at simple things, a 35-foot ladder, 185% increase. Fire hose, the 5-inch that we supply our trucks with, a 63% increase. And you get something down to as simple as a mop handle, 120% increase. All of these are factors in our costs. So how do we combat that? We try to create efficiencies. Some of the things that we've done. So we put into service the mobile sim lab. We took a retired rescue that was no longer serviceable to transport patients, but still under a light duty aspect we could keep on the road. We outfit that with some technology, and we're now sending this truck out to the stations. Multi-factor benefit. 1, the crews are getting their training. 2, we're keeping multiple units from having to drive up to the training center. That's saving on diesel costs, that's saving on mileage on the trucks. 3, and what I think is the most important, it's keeping them in their district. So if something serious goes down, they're still there. We have not vacated that district with resources. They're there, the cardiac arrest, the structure fire goes down, they're still available to respond. In the comm center, we're leveraging every technology that we possibly can to make their jobs easier. With the CAD and its ability to recommend what units get dispatched using GPS. We're not relying on run cards anymore, which takes time, takes an operator to do. Dispatching of trucks. We've transitioned from a physical person getting on the radio telling what trucks are being dispatched to now it's done by the computer. The computer says what trucks are being dispatched just by the press of a button. Again, creating efficiencies. Something that many of you on the board approved many years ago, EMS vending machines, which got a chuckle out of the board when we put that in. I was the EMS division chief at the time. We put a couple of different vending machines in a couple of stations, centralized, to put our most expensive medications, durable equipment, EKG dots, things that are very expensive, that we could centralize that resource so that each station didn't have to have as many. Since then, our supplier is now giving them to us for free because it helps them out too. So in our new stations, we're putting these machines in and leveraging another part of that with medications, even the durable medical equipment, looking at expiration dates. We're tracking that. So when we have a medication that's out at one of our slower stations that's coming close to expiration, we move it to our busy stations in the hope, hopefully it doesn't get used, but in the likelihood that it will. That's keeping our stock, just a more efficient use of our stock. Another thing, which every one of you has seen at this point, is our dashboards, specifically the ones that I showed you, that track all of our benchmarks, our times, our statistics for our accreditations. As you know, we're an ISO 1, we're CAS accredited, we're CFAI fire accredited, all the major accreditations that you can get. And what used to happen is multiple people had to provide a single person all of this data that we have to track monthly. And they would have to compile it, they would have to put it together, it would have to get vetted, a lot of staff time. Now, at the touch of a button, we have the statistics. It's all funneling into one spot. And that's just a huge collaboration, not just, this isn't just on our part, but with IT, creating a data center for us. It's huge. That's the only reason that we're able to do that. Again, just leveraging those technologies to create as many efficiencies that we can. Other unfunded mandates, you start looking at emissions from the federal government. We're no different than the passenger vehicle. Unlike the military, who is exempt, our fire trucks have to meet those emission standards. We have DEF systems on there. We just experienced a 100,000 plus increase in the cost of our fire engines specifically to that, and the reductions that were coming through the federal government. Again, making those costs go up even more. Electric vehicles are on the horizon. That includes fire trucks. Luckily, there has been some relief of that coming in 2027 because that's going to double the price of a fire truck, not to mention the infrastructure that's going to have to go in place. Just in conclusion, obviously our costs are increasing. We're doing everything that we possibly can to create efficiencies and keep our ask as minimal as possible. And that's all I have.
That concludes our presentation.
Thank you very much. We'll start with Commissioner Delary and work our way this way, and then we'll come back to Commissioner Herr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Fire Chief, thank you and all the men and women of the fire department. As I said earlier, you all do a phenomenal job on so many different levels, and you definitely keep us safe. And I appreciate every one of you up and down the rank and file of the fire department. You all do a phenomenal job. To say thank you, we'll be here all day. You did talk about some of the legislation that's coming down either from Washington or Tallahassee. Can you talk to us a little bit about House Bill 929?
So House Bill 929 is the firefighter safety bill. There's multiple aspects in that. One of those I was talking about, the
one I'm talking
gear.
about is the 42 hours.
So the one that is not a mandate, it's a recommendation in 929, is reducing many fire department schedules to a 42-hour work week. So currently, most organizations run off of a 56-hour work week. They're 24 on, 48 off. There has been some in the state that are transitioning to a 24/72 work schedule, which gets them to the 42-hour work week. Now, there's lots of different ways you can get to the 42-hour work week. But this is a recruitment, retention, and mental health reasoning for transitioning to that. There's going to be challenges with that for those that are switching to that. There's already a firefighter deficit in the state. And to accomplish this, most places will have to hire an entire additional shift.
I know Kissimmee just went to it, correct?
Kissimmee just agreed to go to it. The implementation of it, I'm anticipating is going to take years.
I don't know.
They have to hire 50 people.
I was watching the video of the actual meeting where they actually approved it. They didn't have a time frame, but they definitely approved it, because I saw the fire chief comment on it.
Yes.
Dispatch, back in the day, and I know when I was with Oviedo, the city used to do their own dispatch. Which years did the county assume dispatch from all the 7 cities? You remember?
So I could not give you the exact date for each one.
Okay.
I know I was hired in 2001, and we took on Oviedo, which was the last one, sometime there.
I
at
was
the
a part of
beginning
that from the Oviedo side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was a part of that from the Oviedo side in the early 2000s. That's why I'm asking. So you don't,
I don't know the exact dates of every single one of
okay,
them. If I were to venture a guess, it was in the 90s.
okay. The carry forward, this county's carrying a large carry forward from past years. And just a quick look at the carry forward statement that we got, you're up around 46 million, plus or minus. How do you plan on reducing that number?
By building fire stations and renovating some fire stations. That's the main part of those carry forward, is about infrastructure.
Yeah, the fire station's about somewhere in the 40s in carry forward. When do you think Station 39 will open? What
You'll
year?
have to ask facilities.
All right, I'll wait till they get up here.
Any day.
You talked to
That should be in the very near future. It's very close. Chief DeCure and I were just out here. It looks as if you could move in right now. There's still a few things that need to be accomplished.
Okay. I know you talked about the transfer fees. I agree with that. Some of the cities are charging more than what we're charging for the transfer fees. I know the training facility, when we originally purchased that, they did talk about that being a revenue source, and we stopped asking that question a number of years ago. But I know it's not a real big revenue source, but from people from not in the county, it should be, from some perspective.
So can I just add to that? So not a revenue source in the aggregate, but how we try to run that, and seems to be a workable model, is we split the classes up, because obviously our crews need technical rescue training too, and all the different disciplines. So we try to split the class up to paying customers and those that we're putting in through our organization to try to break even. And that's
And
where
again,
we're
when I
trying to
meant
live.
revenue source, I wasn't where it's a profit center. It's a revenue source to reduce our overhead and cost.
We are definitely doing that.
And that was the outcome that we were able to get a number of years ago. So I think that's a good place to be. When we talk about the specialty teams that you all have, what specialty teams do we have to help augment the city's departments?
So I would say that the biggest service that none of them have is hazmat. Our SHOT team, Special Hazard and Operations team, certified technicians through the state can go do a lot of things with the equipment that the cities just don't have. Everybody has an aerial at this point. Not everybody has a platform like we have. Makes elevated rescue easier. Some of them have high angle teams. Some of them have kind of a trench, but not to the level with the equipment that we have.
Thank you very much, Chief. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Constantine.
Thank you. And Chief, and I'm saying this to all of our staff that is now going, including, the county manager, thank you for embracing the seminal moments and doing everything you can to try to keep our budget flat as we go forward. And I'm talking, all of under the BCC. I really appreciate it. Couple of things. We have been a leader in consolidation of the fire departments in not only this region, but the state. We have 3 of the 7 cities that are now under the umbrella of the Seminole County Fire Department, and we have received the highest accolades when it comes to accreditation. I know that it's got to be apples to apples when we are looking at these other things, but has any of the others any of the other 4 cities talk to you at all, preliminarily, or talk to, anybody as far as, looking at potential consolidation?
So interesting that you ask, because I get that question at fire stations consistently. And I have not been asked, while being the fire chief, anybody asking what a merger would look like, what the cost would be, how it would be implemented, not once. And with some of the talk that there has been over the past couple of years at the cities, as far as fire fees, I thought that would happen, and it has not.
Well, economy of scales always tell you that eventually it will be more efficient. I remember when we were talking about in Altamont Springs, which was the first one that did it, I think the biggest complaint was that everybody liked having a fire chief. And they really couldn't come up with another good reason to have their own fire department.
I hope you feel the same.
Absolutely. Well, I don't see us merging with Orange County anytime soon. I just think that in today's circumstance, it's always nice to continue that conversation with the others. The last thing, you and I have had a conversation about ACLFs and retirement homes. When we're talking about transfer fees from people not in the county, it occurs to me, living that I live within a mile within 3 ACLFs and or retirement homes, and right across the street from the hospital, that it seems like it's awful expensive to send the big truck out there and then find out that it's really not, an emergency. I know it's hard to sit there and, tell them, when they're concerned, not to call out the 911 or ask for something, but there's got to be an educational process there that we need to find a way to make sure that they know that not every emergency is necessarily an emergency that needs to have the big fire truck and everything else come out. So have you taken steps on that?
100%. That's happened for years. And we're actually making a run at that right now, which includes our community paramedicine, our EMS division, and our medical director, and one of his assistant medical directors going around to these facilities and doing that education. It's ongoing. We do that all the time. The challenge comes because the staff changes all the time.
Yeah.
So we'll get an increase, we'll identify where that's coming from, we'll go there, we'll educate, and we'll get a decrease.
Yeah.
We'll see an increase again. Oh, new nurse manager, and we have to go back out again. So we are actively and consistently doing that.
It's such an expense. Sometimes it's not just the carrot. It might need a little stick every once in a while with the ownership. Maybe they'll have a little bit more thing. But I see that not only as a major expense potential that we could, have some cost savings, but also the fact that it reduces the services potentially when you have everybody out there and not the truck at the fire station.
That's the biggest impact, is the availability of the unit.
That's it. Thank you.
Commissioner Lockhart.
Oh, I know every one of us is going to say we're so proud of our organization under your leadership, and it's not just lip service. For the few times that I've had to call 911 or have an incident, I've always hoped that it was Seminole County that showed up because I know the training and I know the skill set that your team has. It's not just about the equipment, although that's very, very important. It's the people. So the fact that this board continues to support public safety as being the primary importance, and public safety, we talk about public safety. That's a big umbrella. Yes, it's the sheriff. It's you all, it's animal services, it's emergency management, it's stormwater during hurricanes. I mean, public safety is a big umbrella for our community, and you are the reason why we exist, I believe. Local government exists to be able to provide the services that you provide to protect our citizens. And the fact that you have been able to deliver us this budget and continue to deliver the services that you deliver, I think is remarkable. It's commendable, truly. So I have no questions.
We have, and thank you for those kind words. It's easy to be the fire chief with the level of personnel that we have. You can't train, in reality, their attitude and their want to provide that service to the citizens. And then to add on to that, the county manager's office and the board have been just extremely supportive of public safety, the fire department in particular. So it's not just me. I'm just trying to wrangle the circus, and it's everybody. And you mentioned the other departments. Again, we couldn't do what we do without IT, without stormwater. There's so many things that we could not do without our other partners, emergency management. It's really incredibly collaborative here in Seminole County.
Thank you.
Commissioner Herr.
I'm going to ask the questions, and then I'll give you the accolades, just so we mix it up a little bit. Does the Fire Training Center living quarters increase staff once it's open?
No.
So you're moving people from other locations
Yeah,
to...
Currently, Tech 1 and the tanker drivers are out of Station 24, which is already busting at the seams.
Okay.
That's where we moved them to when we took down the double wide.
Have we given any thought to allocating funding toward reserves? I'm completely comfortable with a carryover, by the way. I think our citizens are probably comfortable with carryovers. It's better than not having carryovers. Have we given any thought to allocating funding to reserves for the acquisition of the PFAS-free gear that we know is coming down the pike, so that we don't take it upside the head like a baseball with a baseball bat? We know it's coming.
So we haven't, and the reason being, and talking to the State Fire Marshal's office and them giving indication of what will end up being the rule, they understand, and even the legislature understood with the fire chiefs and union representation in the background, that they can't do it all at once. It's impossible. You're talking millions of sets of gear in reality.
Understood. There's a manufacturing issue.
It will get staged in, and we will continue on, which is in our CIP, that replacement of that gear. As long as that happens, there shouldn't be a tremendous impact. The costs are going to go up a little bit, and the durability of the gear is going to go up a little bit. Just for lack of a better term, that PFAS creates armor on the gear. And so we're already experiencing with our PFAS-free outer layers, when it goes to get cleaned, which it has to be per NFPA, we're starting to see some degradation of the gear. So that's what we're anticipating, is an increase in costs, hopefully not tremendous. First of the market, I'm sure, is going to be a little bit more, and that's why they're at least having to have to be to the market. But it's that longevity of the gear going out into the future that I'm most concerned of.
Computer dispatch of trucks, just a heads up to IT. I think a question that we probably don't need to talk about publicly, but we probably should all be briefed on, is how are we securing that software? Placement of the 42-hour work week. I whispered to Darren, we need to do the math and make sure that we're placed in that order of operation in the place that puts us in the best position. So, for example, if we wait until the tail end of that and we have to keep escalating wages in order to keep recruiting because other people have a better work environment, we're going to be behind. So if we know it's coming, let's figure this out and get in front of it, is just food for thought. The last question is, I do want to, I would like to create a little bit of a culture shift in the thinking here, and that is we are shooting for break even on anything that generates revenue. We ought to be shooting for just below market price. You got to buy it somewhere. And so if you're shooting for break even and the market price creates a differential, then our citizens are subsidizing other areas, whether we like it or not, because there's no reserve in there for replacing all of that. So we shouldn't be working for break even. Nobody works for break even. It's America. God bless it. So neither should we. I just want to rethink that. And then I'm going to give you two accolades that haven't been said so far. First is a shout out to the union and to you all for the relationship that we have. We don't see that everywhere. Your interests are aligned. I think we all get that. We know it gets rough and tumble every now and then. Tricia's looking down. She won't look at me while I'm saying this. But outside of those weeks of negotiation, it's an amazing relationship, and our citizens benefit from that. And so I appreciate both sides of that equation for it. And then lastly, dashboards, and they're being used to eliminate workload. Wow. So if I didn't look ridiculous doing the happy dance on camera, I would be doing a happy dance, probably right on top of this dais, because that's what it's all about. So I'm super excited about that. So thank you for that leadership.
Commissioner Lahr, you had something additional?
I just want to follow up on two things that Commissioner Constantine was talking about. And Lee, when you were talking about adult living facilities, there are a number of calls that the adult living facilities have that are not true emergencies. I'm hoping that when you review that, you'll take that into account, and if there's a fee structure that will address that, just like false alarms with fire alarm systems, just FYI. And then the second thing that Commissioner Constantine talked about was consolidation of the remaining cities. Some of the cities are not looking at it from apples to apples, because I was looking at the City of Oviedo's sheet, and there were some things that they weren't in that calculation, and I just want to make sure that it's clearly stated that in the consolidation number, you also have to look at capital improvement of replacement of their vehicles as well as new stations, and some of the cities are not looking at that, and so that's why they don't understand why consolidation makes sense. I would love to see us look at, what are the remaining 4 cities, we know what they are, and what the number would be for consolidation to see, so that the cities actually have a real number. And I think that would be prudent to do instead of them doing it on their own, that there's a collaboration of what that number would be.
So my belief on consolidation, it makes financial fiscal sense for our taxpayers. They're paying taxes to this county, whether they live in a city or not. They're paying the same amount of taxes to this county, whether they're incorporated or unincorporated, but they get the luxury of paying an additional tax to the cities. If us as elected officials throughout the county really want to leverage the efficiency for our taxpayers, it's about having those tough conversations about consolidation, the additional fire divisions, as well as law enforcement. I mean, there's going to come a time, I think, where the market pressures are going to be so great that each city is going to have to raise their taxes to a point where it's unaffordable, and the county may end up doing the same thing, which is not where we all want to be. And we should collaborate with each other and see where we're headed. The carry forwards don't bother me as well. So that everybody understands, the carry forwards, although they're not all encumbered, they're pretty much encumbered for a purpose, correct?
Correct.
In other words, there is an intention, there are plans in the works, there are RFPs that will eventually go out that have been talked about, considered, that those monies will be allocated for pretty much in its entirety. Is that a fair analogy?
It's just like anybody that you do in your household. You're looking out that I need to replace my car in 5 years. Well, you start saving up that money to make that replacement. So that money's going to carry forward. Right. I'm planning to buy a house in 5 years.
Sure.
You start to put together that money, and that's what we're doing.
And arguably, that would be good fiscal practice to plan ahead for those. One thing we can't plan ahead for is what market pressures may come to bear on the cost of those improvements or what those are planned for. So I want to make sure that we're looking at that very closely from the standpoint of, I don't know that any of us could have ever predicted we'd find ourselves in this situation, the cost of goods fire trucks going up 53% in 5 years, 30% increase in construction costs, labor increases of 12, 15, 20%. So hopefully we can try to get a better handle on that, moving forward.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just for clarification purposes, the reason why I'm concerned about carrying forward is because once you have a decent number to actually build or replace what the carry forward is deemed for. If you don't spend that money, inflation is going to erode it. And so when the county has both enterprise funds and what's called the general fund of $548 million to carry forward, it's time to look at the carry forward to see what needs to be spent instead of just holding on to it.
So I don't disagree with you, and that's why I was so vocal on carry forwards 5 years ago.
I understand that.
Mr. Jex will tell you that, or ask, each department to go through and look, if it's money that's encumbered, you plan to do a project and you were funded 7 years ago and you haven't started it yet, my opinion is, if it was important enough 7 years ago, it'll be important enough 2 years from now. Come back and ask for it, but it needs to be rolled forward as tax dollars. But when you get into that 2-3 year period of time, that is good fiscal responsibility and planning for those needs in the future. Finally, it has not been mentioned, but there's been a lot of talk about what the fire department does and all the things it touches, because really my experience has been when nobody else in the county can handle it, it's the fire department that does it, whether it's get the chainsaw out and go cut the tree out of the roadway, whether it's unplug the sewer drain during the middle of a storm, but even saving the dogs and cats from a fire and resuscitating them is fantastic. It's not just about getting cats out of the top of the tree. It's, our family members that sometimes are caught in these fires. And I give your men and women of the fire division kudos for being able to save those animals and in many cases render emergency assistance that otherwise would not happen. So
Even snakes.
yes, exactly. That's exactly, and that's a weird one. I don't understand all that. No, good work. So thank you all very much. If there's nothing else, we will move on to emergency management.
And I'll just say one thing, Mr. Chairman, real quick, if I could. One thing that the chief and I have talked about, we'll bring back to you this fall, is our 5-year capital improvement plan on these fire station placements and where they're going to go, just to update the board and to ensure that we're all on the same page on where they need to go. We've been talking about that recently, and so we'll be bringing that back to you.
On that, when you bring that up, what kind of multiplier is staff currently use in light of the cost escalations that we've seen over the last couple of years? Are you using any kind of escalator as you move forward?
So the answer is yes, and we're doing that we're doing that with everything.
Sure.
But specifically stations and apparatus, we have escalators in there, predictive into the future. I think it's 3% right now for stations, because the construction prices seem to be leveling out. So yes, everything that we're doing, we have 2 very complicated spreadsheets.
Sure.
One for station constructions, renovations, and one for apparatus, which do predict that out into eternity.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. All right. We will move to emergency management, Mr. Alan Harris's group. Speaking of it, 'tis the season, hurricane season, so.
What's the dapper look today? Look at this.
Yeah.
Brought some friends with me. Okay. Alan Harris, Director of Emergency Management. Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners, County Management, County Attorney. I have a few friends I brought with me today. Division Manager Stephen Lerner, Division Manager for Emergency Management. Our newest team member, Chris Stronko, Division Manager for Animal Services. Miranda Kay, she is our Assistant 911 Coordinator. Dina Walker, our Division Manager for 911 and Addressing, is on vacation this week. I let her go on vacation, so Miranda came with me. And everyone knows Tommy Oliveras, been with the county for many, many years for our emergency telecommunications.
So the emergency management's total budget for fiscal '26 is $13.8 million, 75% from the general fund and 25% from special revenue funds. That includes the county's E911 and animal services. The general fund covers emergency management, animal control, emergency telecommunication programs, and the E911 fund covers the E911 service. There's a full line item budget for emergency management, which can be found on page 101 of your supplemental package or page 557 of your work session book. Base budget variances are primarily attributed to increases in personnel costs and operating increases in the E911 fund. Capital budgets at the bottom include $270,000 for HVAC replacements at 3 of the county's emergency radio towers and approximately $1 million in technology projects in the E911 fund. If we focus on just the base budget of the general fund, excluding E911, the emergency management's total base operating budget is being held flat at $3.3 million.
Tim, if you could stay on that just for 1 second. I just want to thank my division managers and team. We were able to keep to the county manager's direction at 0%, but that, just like the chief mentioned a few moments ago, that's regardless of the increases we've had by our vendors. Our large vendors like AT&T, Motorola, they have increased costs. As their increased costs came here, we were able to fine-tune, make some efficiencies across the board in our operating budget, and we were able to come actually a little bit under 0%, which was amazing, and I want to thank my team members for their hard work in doing that. As mentioned, we have 5 operating budget divisions. Addressing, we address for all unincorporated Seminole County as well as Lake Mary and Longwood. Lake Mary and Longwood pay us to address for them, so we provide addressing services for those 2 cities. We have just had a request from Winter Springs to take on theirs. We have not approached that yet. That's still a discussion we have to have at the county management level, but they have entertained or asked us to entertain addressing for them. So as those addresses come in, it goes really to our next budget division, and that is E911. E911 does all of the technology for the 2 communication centers, our primary communication center at the sheriff's office, and then our secondary communication center at the fire and EMS department. So we manage all the infrastructure for that. Once, of course, the call comes in and it's been relayed, it goes to the other division, which is telecommunication, which handles the 800 megahertz system. We are fully interoperable 800 megahertz systems here in Seminole County. Many years ago, well, not many, a few years ago, Stoneman Douglas, of course, occurred down in Broward County. Very tragic event. Fire, law enforcement couldn't talk on the same radio channels. I'm very proud to say that we have a robust system here. No matter what city, what county you're working in this Central Florida area, we can communicate because of our robust radio technology. Then, of course, emergency management oversees large-scale disasters, preparing, responding, recovering, mitigating from those disasters, and animal services. Once the call comes in, the call is relayed to our animal control officers, which, of course, go out and deal with all types of events 24/7. We have a few different Seminole moments that I'm pretty proud of. We all got together and thought of different ways that we could possibly save the county some money, create some efficiencies, and one of the biggest ones is a portable mobile radio conversion project to cellular. What this means is anyone that is not a first response entity like law enforcement, fire rescue, code enforcement, or animal control, moving them from the portable radios, and a portable radio costs anywhere from about $10,000 to $16,000 now, and we're being told that that will increase potentially 10% more due to the tariffs. So that's a lot of money just for one portable radio that's on a firefighter, law enforcement, which it needs to be for those folks, but maybe not necessarily for public works or parks or places like that. So we're looking at that non-response type of first response types of organizations, moving them to cellular technology, much cheaper and much more efficient. And we are looking at a potential savings over the next couple of years of about $3 to $4 million when we look at that, just that particular Seminole moment. The next one is a dog enrichment yard. You will notice some efficiencies in our operating related to animal services, some decrease in shelter supplies, and some decrease in other areas of animal services, and we are looking to make that up through this efficiency. Very similar to if you've been to a hockey game or a baseball game and you see the outfield and it has Stanley Steamer, and I'm using Stanley Steamer on purpose because they already donate with us. So, but you see Stanley Steamer would have that at our animal control area dog play yard, and it would be there all year. We would make funds off of that, which would help to fund some of our programming. We're looking at doing bulk commodity for pet food. This is now that we have a nice warehouse where we can keep it clean and away from any other animals and things like that, purchasing in bulk, that will help us reduce some cost. And then the last efficiency, the last seminal moment, is an adoption of dog run areas. I thought this was a really cool idea one of our staff came up with, and each dog run, very similar to the Children's Fund years ago, used for a cup of coffee, you would get a picture of a child, they would get a picture of the dog that they're adopting inside the shelter until it is adopted out to a family. And that fund, those funds would help to pay for anything that we need inside of the shelter. Some highlights, we have cybersecurity is a major issue when it comes to 911 and emergency management and emergency telecommunications. 911 systems have been hit, 800 megahertz have been hit by cybersecurity. We have done enhanced cybersecurity at our tower sites, at our 911 center, to make sure that we aren't attacked, but we always have bad actors that are trying to attack us, as well as in the budget, looking at how we can improve the security systems at each one of our 9 tower sites. So we're looking at enhancing that. We're also very proud that it's in the current budget for the computer-aided dispatch and medical records. This is an enhancement to our Chameleon, which is how we track every animal that comes into the shelter for medical records and things like that. We have quite a few challenges. We are no different than any other animal shelter really across the United States. If you go to any place, you're seeing the same thing, and that is there's a lot of issues with overcapacity, and it's hitting our shelter very, very hard. We, since 2016, have been a no-kill shelter by definition, not by statistic. I'm not going to talk about that organization that came that one time, but by definition, we have not euthanized an animal due to breed, space, or length of stay. And we're very, very proud of that. And we've done a lot of innovative things through partnerships with organizations to keep that. But we are still busting at the seams. Ventilation and air, HVAC is an issue inside of our shelter. As it gets hotter each and every year, we're in heat advisories now more than we've ever been before, it seems like. This is an issue. We're working very closely with facilities. We have a temporary solution this year. We had a temporary solution last year. This is a challenge for us for a long-term solution. Our Oviedo tower, this is the only tower that we don't own. The 800 megahertz tower in Oviedo is the only tower that we don't own. It is stressed beyond capacity. We will eventually need to move off of that tower, potentially purchasing another tower in the long run. So in the next couple of years, looking at how we're going to go and do that. As infrastructure continues to build in Seminole County and more buildings are built, we're experiencing more interference. We want to, over the next couple of years, get an interference scanning system. Well, what this will allow us to do is identify where that interference is occurring so we can go to those building owners to stop that. The challenge is when we have interference, and we just did this about a year ago, less than a year ago, we were having some interference in the Altamont Springs area, and it was due to a building that had just been built, and they had put some repeaters inside that building. The challenge was whenever the firefighters and police officers got near that building, they were having interference. They couldn't talk efficiently to each other. That's very, very dangerous. So with this system would be able to triangulate where that issue is occurring so we can go out and immediately handle it. And that's something that we like to do in the next year or so. And then the last one that's on the list, but I will talk about one more, but the last one that's on the list is eventually we have to change portable and mobile radios, right? So we have a big purchase coming up pretty quick in the next 3 years, and that is all fire and law enforcement. I won't stress you out about that one right now. But we also have another one, and that is the jail radios, the correction officers. And we're working with the sheriff's office to figure out how we're going to do that. And then the last challenge is the one I didn't put on here because I really don't know what I don't know, and that is, what is FEMA going to look like? That's going to be a challenge. I don't know if they're coming this year. I've been assured they are, but at what level? Are we going to get 100% back? We don't know. Is it going to be a 75-25% match? That seems to be the flavor of Washington right now. So it's just a challenge because we don't know what we're about to go into. So I just need to, with full disclosure, bring that forward to you. I think that's my last slide.
Anything else?
No, that concludes the presentation.
Perfect. All right, we'll start with Commissioner Constantine and go to Commissioner Lockhart, and we'll start back here and work our way that way.
Other than thank you for everything that you and your staff do, whether it be the animal shelter or emergency preparedness. I know you have some challenges working with some of the cities on getting, all of the, everything worked out, Mr. County Manager. But outside of that, thank you very much for keeping your budget in line.
Commissioner Lockhart?
Ditto. But I will add that I had a citizen recently ask me when we were going to air condition the Sunrail stations so that people could stand waiting for their train in air conditioning. And I thought,
Wow.
I know, right? I'll tell you later who it was. You'll laugh. And
Lee, really?
I would ask for fans. I'm not a big air conditioner guy.
But I immediately thought of our shelter and thought, if there's AC going in anywhere around here, it's where it's going first. So, listen, you've got a bunch of animal lovers on this board. There are just so many needs, and I know, because a little birdie told me, your list was much longer than that. And none of the things that you thought would be appropriate were wrong. They're all great things, and all things that we should think about being able to do for our community that includes our pets. So it's tough when you have to say no to the things that you think would still be great things to do. So thank you again for the work that you do. And this might be a question for Tommy, I don't know, but what would somebody have in a building, or I heard Alan say something about repeaters. For someone who's not a techie person, explain to me what it is that would be happening in these buildings that would cause that interference.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Board, County Manager. That would be a repeater that you just said. And we have this new fire code that requires in-building services for first responders. Mm-hmm. At the same time, there is also the same repeater type system for cellular devices. We have that in this building here, both cellular amplifiers and also first responder radio system amplifiers. Folks, the first responder program ran through the building department, is permitted. With the cellular side, there is no capturing of that. So any owner, all they need to do is get online, do a Google search, find a cellular repeater, and have it installed. And what that does is they do not have the frequency-specific band pass filters. I don't want to get too technical. Filters to filter out certain frequencies. It amplifies the whole spectrum. So basically, just getting barraged with signal. Hence, our radios, when we go in, we'll see that degradation.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. That's all I have.
Commissioner Herr?
So, for the love of heavens, I can't find it on the fly in the 7,000 pieces of paper that I have up here. Not my comfort zone. How much was the HVAC?
So we initially had put in $400,000. It was way over that when we did the assessment. Do you remember what that was, Chad, for the?
Come on down.
We can wait.
I want to hear. I think it's good context.
Come on, Chad. Okay.
And so let
You can
me
go to
tell
the
you
podium.
why I'm asking the question, because proactive change can save money in the long run, and we're overcapacity, repeatedly overcapacity. Part of that is the market. Part of that is the tail effect of COVID and everybody having a dog in their house and a cat in their house. Part of that is when you go to adopt in our shelter and you're walking through there, you're not staying longer than you want to. And it's really a shortened interaction. When you go into some of, not that I've ever done this, when you go into some of the neighboring facilities and it's not, you hang longer. you fall in love. Like, it's a different game. So we may end up adding capacity when really what we need to do is add air conditioning. And oh, by the way, we have staff out there. So that's my thought process behind the question.
And I can elaborate too, but go ahead, you can first.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Commissioners, and everyone. So the temporary service we have right now is most likely going to run us for the hotter months, probably between $200,000 and $300,000 for that service. The reason that we are engaging in HVAC systems in the kennel buildings, and Alan can share more directly on this, is there's an 85-degree temperature range that we have to meet.
It's the code of federal regulations.
So that's why for the temporary unit. Now, we have looked at putting in a permanent solution because the temporary, that's not the long-term goal here. The buildings, the electrical systems in the building to handle the electrical would need to be upgraded. We also would need to do an upgrade to the transformer to the building because we need to go to a phase 3 electrical system for the kennel buildings. We're talking upwards between $750,000 to $1 million worth of work just in the electrical. HVAC system, the equipment itself, so it depends on how we want to approach this. If we just want to get units in there based on an upgraded electrical configuration for the kennel buildings, we're talking about a little over $1 million in equipment. Eventually, if we want to hook it, connect it to our chill water system, it's more than that. As well. We've also looked at, had a building envelope consultant come out, take a look at the building itself to see, looking at you've been in the kennels, can we lower the ceiling? Is there additional insulation we can do? And yes, we can do these things, but it's not going to get us to the 85-degree mark. So that's kind of where we're at this point.
And the other thing that is, this board made it very clear to me that when we had the renewal of the Penny, the 4th gen, that this was one on our other projects list that we had because we know that this is important. So when Mr. Wilski came to me and told me all these quick Band-Aid fixes that we could do that would cost us, close to $1 million, of doing that, we're like, let's take the whole project to the board. And that is coming to you, as you all know, that will be coming to you this fall too with all the list of projects that we would like to move forward on. We showed you a little bit of it in March at the retreat that we had with you. This is on that list as well. If we're going to do it, again, we might as well do it right the first time. At the next meeting, July 22nd, Alan Harris and I and Tricia actually have been working on the state of animal services, so we have a complete presentation that we want to bring back to you. Really not for this budget, but you're going to be adopting, but so we can start planning for the future, so to get direction on how we move forward with that as well.
Great.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chad.
My pleasure.
Thank you for everything you all do. And looking so dapper today, Alan, I just can't.
Commissioner Delory.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would echo what the other commissioners have said. By the time you put the electrical service in, by the time you do the building envelope, by the time you put all the other things in, it'd be just as cheap to build a new building. And you'll have something that you can actually use for a number of years instead of just putting a Band-Aid on it. So I'd be inclined to looking at it holistically, like the other commissioners just stated, and I think that's the right thing to do. I'm just concerned about the summer that's coming. So I know you need to do something to make sure we're in compliance. I get that, but I think that we should be operating post-haste so that we're not here again next year trying to figure out why we're spending another $250,000 on just doing some spot cooling.
I just want to clarify, Commissioner Delory, I wasn't advocating building a new building. I wasn't
understand that.
there. I was around putting air conditioning in, so with additional
I know you weren't advocating for a new building, but all I was stating was that by the time you do all the things you have to do, it may be cheaper to build a new building. That's what I was advocating for. Alan, can you talk about the E911 fees, please?
Sure.
Where they're at and who regulates them, and can they be petitioned to be increased?
Oops. So we get, go ahead. You do
Just
it,
good
yes.
afternoon, Miranda Kay, 911 System Support Coordinator. Our 911 fees are set by the Emergency Communications Board in Tallahassee. That board's comprised of 4 coordinators, a sheriff, several people from around the state. Currently, we're at 40 cents per phone line. Now, that's a phone line who lives here. So in Seminole County, how many people do we have that have moved here and go to UCF who are still on their parents' phone plan back in Chicago? Their fees don't come to us. We are much lower than others around the country, and that being raised comes from the Emergency Communications Board.
Okay.
And that's something that has been talked about between the 911 Coordinators Association, both NENA and APCO.
What city was that in again?
No.
Tallahassee?
Yeah, they're in Tallahassee, yeah.
Tallahassee?
Yeah.
Just want to point that out.
Yeah.
It's the reason why I was bringing it up. Thank you for that. Alan, can you also talk about, I like the idea of doing non-emergency radios instead of doing the 911 radios, but have you looked at resetting the different band frequencies on non-emergency radios, and instead of just going to cell coverage?
Yeah, we have, so we actually have looked at, and we've worked with Motorola on other types of technology, lower level radios that don't have all the bells and whistles of a first response radio. They're still quite expensive compared, so.
Okay. I mean, I've not done the analysis, but I know you can do that.
Yes, and we have, and the cellular, when we were asked to do this back at our leadership meeting 3 months ago, something like that, I wanted to bring the biggest bang for the buck, and I think I won an award for the biggest bang for the buck.
Good for you.
That's no offense to anyone, but it was because we had looked at other, and we could have gone with this other radio, but if we'd gone with this other radio, it wouldn't have been 3 to 4 million. It would probably
That's
be $1
fine.
million.
And then the next thing is, I don't see in the budget, I'd like to understand your warehouse use and your cost of your warehouse.
Okay.
Can you go over that?
Sure. So we rent multiple warehouses, one for animal services. Animal services warehouse includes food, litter, all the stuff, crates, and I was just in it yesterday, actually. And then emergency management, that's where we have all of our medical cots, talking about increases. Our medical cots just went up from $200 now to $450 per medical cot. So to get replacements of medical cots, that's what it is. So, and all the other emergency supplies, the functional needs support services and things like that. Emergency telecommunications has a warehouse. That's where they keep all of the supplies for the tower sites. We get hit by lightning. We're a big piece of metal sticking up in the air. So whenever we get hit by lightning, one of our techs goes out, whoever's on call, to figure out what's going on, may have to do some repairs, and all. That's where all of our supplies are kept. At least a majority of the supplies are kept. Some are kept at the public safety building. And then we also rent for Joe's group, Information Technology, and they keep some of their supplies out at their
How many square
warehouse.
foot, what's the number of square footage that you actually lease?
I'd have to get back with you on the exact square foot for each one.
And can you get me the cost for each one, please?
Sure, of course.
Okay. And then my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add into that, it's a good question, and as if you remember back in March, what we talked about, we're working on an analysis now about all of our lease space, warehouse space, and that we can condense all of that on our 5-point site. So that will, that's in the plan to coming back to you as well.
Thank you.
Well, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go into anything. Thank you very much. Good work. Keep up the great work, and I hope we have an uneventful hurricane season. Thank you very much. That concludes our morning session. Next up is going to be our Development Services, Mr. Jose Gomez.
Welcome, Jose.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jose Gomez,
Pull
Development.
that mic up a little closer there, Jose.
Eat it, Jose.
I can hear you.
Jose Gomez, Development Services. And
That didn't sound right.
That did not sound right.
with me is Lori Meeks, our financial manager. And I'll let Tim get started with the presentation.
The Development Services total FY26 budget is $10.98 million. 42% of that is in the general fund, which covers growth management, planning, and development services. We have the building fund is 55%, and 1.6% is related to our arbor violation fund. Full line item budget for the department is on page 114 of your supplemental package, or 573 of your work session book. Of the increase in personnel services, showing $874,000, approximately $560,000 of that is related to the code enforcement program being transferred to Jose's department. That includes 6 FTEs. The increase in operating shown here is primarily related to the arbor violation fund, because the total base budget, including building and general fund within the development services department, is reducing by $138,000.
Okay, so this is the structure of the department currently. We have building, development, review, engineering, and under growth management, that really breaks out into planning and development, our business office, and then code enforcement that's being brought on board. So if we move forward to our seminal moments, we actually looked at a couple of things to help to streamline things. The first one I'm very excited about is to create a one-stop shop. Really, right now, our permit intake and our administrative services for planning and development and building are separate, one on the first floor, one on the second floor. We need to send customers up to the second floor to talk about variances and other things, and then they get sent back to the first floor. From a customer service standpoint, slam dunk, makes sense, but it's also going to give us an opportunity to kind of consolidate those services, provide some cross-training for staff to be able to help our residents, and also be able, with our Excella implementation, which is our new permitting software that we're working on right now, as that comes on board, that'll help streamline some of those services as well. And the other thing that it does is that it'll allow us to reallocate some of the space on the second floor for some of the incoming staff, specifically for code enforcement and some other needs. We also looked interdepartmentally specifically with our Public Works Department on our engineering services. Really hard to recruit positions. Right now, there are things where we can partner on, and also potentially look at how we distribute staff between these two departments, and that'll allow us to stay nimble, reallocate some FTEs potentially, and streamline our services across departments. So our significant budget highlights and challenges, really the biggest challenge we have is decrease in development and building activity, reduced revenue. This chart shows the fiscal year 23, 24, and 25 through May 21st, 2025. You can see that there is a decline, there's a decrease, both in our general fund with planning and development review, engineering revenue. It's not dire, but it is decreasing. And same thing with the Building Enterprise Fund. You could see fiscal year 23, 24, there's been a decrease. And then through May of 2025, you can see what's been collected. And with a projected, we're looking at revenue shortfall of about $500,000, it seems like, which again, not dire, but definitely a decline. So that pretty much concludes our presentation, and open up for any questions.
Great. We'll start with Commissioner Herr.
I have nothing. Thank you for everything you do, and thank you for letting our citizens not have to walk up and down stairs in the elevator. And it's been that way for years, and I don't get it. But so that's awesome.
Commissioner Delory.
Thank you. Jose, I know that you're fairly new in your position, so this may have to go to someone else. There's been a reserve in the development review, and as the projects are not coming in, that reserve is going down. When is it projected? Because I don't see the projections of it in future years. And how do you plan to address that?
So in building, currently our reserves are currently at $3.5 million approximately. We anticipate that that's going to be decreasing to about $2.3 million in the next year. Really, at some point, we're going to have to look at balancing our fees potentially and to make sure that we're keeping up with inflation. We haven't looked at our fees since 2019. That's one way to do that, and then just manage that also.
But normally, with DRC, you can actually see what's actually coming in.
Sure.
So if you don't see enough that's happening with either economic development or with the redevelopment, I don't know, because I don't see it from your perspective, what's actually taking place in the marketplace.
In the marketplace right now, we're definitely seeing a decrease, especially in Seminole County, of larger developments, just because there isn't as much land. And where people do want to put projects, it's generally in the more environmentally sensitive areas where we don't necessarily want them at the higher densities that are coming in. So it is a challenge. It's not that we're not having pre-applications. We have lots of pre-applications coming in. A lot of them are just we're having to tell them because of our restrictions, because of our environmental regulations, that there really isn't the right place, or at that density it won't work. So I wouldn't say that we don't have, the development has completely died off. It's just the ones that do come in, it's just difficult to find the correct place for them.
Thank you.
Mr. Constantine.
Thank you very much. But redevelopment, do we see an uptick in redevelopment?
We've seen some. Again, one of the things that we may have to discuss in the future is that a lot of times when people come in for redevelopment, they're coming in for something and it still needs a special exception, or it needs a rezoning, a PD amendment. And it can be cumbersome at times to go through those processes for redevelopment. But that's something that we need to watch in the future and make sure that, and possibly partner with economic development as well, so that we can provide some incentives, not necessarily financial incentives, but just reducing the red tape and reducing the steps that people have to go through in order to redevelop those properties.
Streamlining.
Yes, correct.
Not necessarily making it easier, just streamlining, making sure that people know where to go one step at a time in redevelopment. Because I think all of us have said, and including yourself, including the county manager, that that's where we're going. Mm-hmm. We're going to do, because we don't have the land any longer, because we're the third largest or smallest county in the state and the third most densely populated, we're going to have redevelopment, and quite frankly, that is a good thing. We're going to be able to improve what we maybe 30 years ago wish we hadn't approved, but now we're going to be able to approve good redevelopment. And in that light, I do believe, like you said, we have talked about this before. We don't want to get behind in the fees. We don't want to get behind in the impact fees. And I think it's time that we, as we're searching for revenues, people paying for the services that we provide is, in my opinion, the first thing we should look at. And so, since we haven't looked at the fees since 2019, I think we should look at them. I think the impact fees, last time we talked, we always wanted to look at them every 5 years.
That was 3.
3 years.
Huh?
It was 3.
It was 3? It's time.
Yep.
It's time.
Yep.
So I think that we need to start doing that and looking at that. And quite frankly, I think we talked in the past about the building fees versus the general fund. A number 60-40 would be the best. I don't remember or recall if that was during when all of us were here, but I do know that we wanted to have not a hard and fast formula, but at the current time, I think building funds at 50, almost 56, general funds at 42. It's getting closer, but the 60-40 was something that I know that would be, that we discussed before. So
Okay.
With that, that's all I have to say. Congratulations on continuing to, streamline and keep the budget down.
Mr. Lockhart.
I'm going to ask Lori to help me remember. The Customer Resource Center, when it was down in the area that's now, there was a gal that worked there who was the friendliest, most knowledgeable, fabulous person, and she was let go during the elimination and the downturn in 2007. Help me, Sue McCracken. Sue McCracken. Can we find her and tell her that we're so sorry, we made a mistake, and we need her to come back? She was phenomenal. We had a great system working back then, and so I'm glad to see that we're getting back to that idea of having a one-stop shop down there that can help people get to where they need to go without having to go past a security guard. That's awesome. Thank you, Sue McCracken. I want to talk a little bit about code enforcement, because we talked about it earlier when the sheriff was up here, and there were some questions about budgeting and funding and where, how we came up with the proposed budget for code enforcement. And so I did get a chance to talk to Chief Spriggs out on the porch after the meeting, and upon further conversation, that $527,000 is not their all-in number for code enforcement, and they did not provide us the all-in number. So that she said she's going to send that, I believe, maybe with some additional information that Mary Hope is going to help her pull together. But if you could just help walk us through what we included. I know we have history, but I just want to make sure, because if you only look at, if the sheriff says he spent $527,000 a year on code enforcement, and now we're rolling it in and it's $1 million, it looks like, well, what are you doing, County Commission? But that 527 was not an all-in number. So can you just walk us through that budget
That's
for us?
correct. And the one thing I want to point out is that we provided the support services for code enforcement. We provided the code clerk. We provided the special magistrate. All of those things are currently in the development services budget. And all of those things are getting carried over, and we're bringing over the personnel. So we've got the personnel, we've got the all of the operating budget in our budget for code enforcement. The only thing we didn't put in there was like the capital outlay for the new vehicles, because those are being transferred from the sheriff's office. But we've basically got our all-in budget here for code enforcement with personnel and operating, and it breaks down to $734,596.
I'd like to add that we set up the 6 FTEs within Jose's budget. We worked with our HR department to make sure they had the correct pay band, and then our office, OMB, budgets all of the salaries and benefits just based on our standard process. Jose's team identified the operating budget, but we, at this time, do not have those internal charges that you were talking about. We don't have charges for fleet in here or IT. So we're still building it. They have to go through our internal service departments to review, but those are the budgets that we have
Okay.
for now.
And also, I want to say, it's not that the sheriff's office was keeping those numbers from us. They just don't track them like we do. But they have offered to pull them together for us so that we can have a better apples-to-apples comparison. So I realized as I was replaying that in my head, it sounded like I was implying that they had done they were trying to hide something, and that was not the implication, ladies. I'm so sorry. But thank you. When the public looks at it, I hope the public would actually look at it. Do you think they're not even going to look at it. But if someone were to ever want to look at that comparison, they may wonder why the number changed so drastically. So thank you for that explanation. That's all I have.
You got something?
Just one thing,
County
thank you,
Manager,
Mr. Chairman. And to answer Commissioner Constantine's question about fees, we actually started, if you remember last year during the budget work sessions, we're starting to look at the building fund. We knew a couple years out, Mr. Jackson and I have talked about it as well, that it is declining a little bit, but what you all don't see is a lot of stuff doesn't come to the board during public hearings. A lot of their activity is just normal activity that comes through, and that is what we are looking to ensure that the right fees are balanced with that. So that's something that we have on the list this year that Mr. Gomez, myself, and Mr. Jex will be working on to see if we're out of balance or not, but that is on our list.
Okay, good.
I'd also add that we did freeze positions in the building fund. We saw the challenge coming, so we're looking to control costs on the expenditure side as well.
Okay, great. I have nothing. Thank you all very much. I hope our development services increase. Next up is Community Services, Ms. Allison Thal and her team. Good afternoon, ladies.
Good afternoon, commissioners.
We had hoped to had you on right after lunch, but
This is close enough.
this will work.
Yeah.
Close enough.
Did you want to introduce everyone?
Welcome to my team. I have with me my division managers for, you'll see in a moment, my divisions. I have Carrie Longsworth with Community Assistance. I have Stacy Smithwick, she is my financial manager. I have Tadine Diaz over my community development. Of course, Kelly Welsh, Community Health.
So the Community Services FY26 budget request is $21 million. At the time of the printing of this document, 73% is from the general fund and 26% is from special revenue, which includes our opioid settlement money. There are 53 FTEs in the budget with no proposed changes going into FY26. What's missing from this budget is the FY25 budget included $10 million for federal and state grants. We typically get those grant agreements identified during the summer, and we'll be back to include them in the budget as part of the public hearing process. If you look on the base budget, the grants and aids line is going from $15.3 million down to $11.9 million. That reduction is an accounting adjustment related to how we're tracking our opioid funding, where we had fully budgeted the revenues in expenditure lines in fiscal '25, but moving forward, we'll only be budgeting the amounts we anticipate to spend during the fiscal year. The remaining amounts will be going into reserves. If you focus on just the general fund, the community services base budget is being reduced by $207,000 from $11.7 to $11.5 million in FY26.
So as we just mentioned, this is community services. We do have our 5 areas, our 3 divisions, plus our business office, and of course, our veteran service office. So with respect to seminal moments, community services has identified 3 seminal moments, thank you, Tim, that will directly impact next fiscal year. First is actually the non-renewal of a long-standing agreement that the county has had with Central Florida Regional Hospital, otherwise known as HCA. This agreement was originally put in place in 1980 to provide indigent care services to our residents. Over the past 40 years, countywide indigent care services have expanded immensely and continue to be supported by multiple providers and sources, including our health department, True Health, our Healthcare Responsibility Act program, and with our mandated Medicaid contributions. So the cost savings that are associated with this action are about $362,412. Our second seminal moment is tied to our annual contribution that we make to the Agency for Healthcare Administration Low-Income Pool. Central Florida Family Health Centers, again known as True Health locally, benefits from this contribution to help offset their uncompensated care. We are realigning our contribution to reflect Seminole County's population, thus resulting in a cost savings of about $195,254. Our third seminal moment is more of an operational direct service efficiency. I am recommending that we return our outsourced permanent supportive housing for the chronically homeless that is now being provided by Aspire Health Partners back into community services. Over the past 24 months, our current provider has decreased the level of service while increasing their operating costs. We're currently spending just over $208,000 to outsource this program. By bringing it in-house, we estimate that our staffing costs will be about $148,000. The street outreach portion will run about $60,000, and the efficiency, which includes a larger number of clients served and a higher quality of service provided, actually results in a budget-neutral impact. So some of our significant highlights and challenges. We have 3 highlights and challenges. Our first, so as a result of the seed funding that we received in the amount of $2 million from our American Rescue Plan award, this was earmarked specifically to address affordable housing. We implemented a revolving credit program that assisted developers in specializing in affordable housing construction. This has proved to be very successful, as a total of over 20 affordable homes have either been fully constructed or occupied or are currently under construction.
Also, with the passage of the vacation rental registration resolution, our General Housing Trust Fund is now collecting fees that are generated from this instrument. So next, to help address the budget constraints, I am offering to return the Community Services Assistance, our CSA program, award each year our annual allocation back to our fiscal year 23-24 rate of $842,233. Our current allocation this year was $1 million. So this rollback will result in a cost savings of $157,767. And then lastly, to address the need for the enhanced support to our homelessness funding, my recommendation is to adjust our current homelessness funding contribution from 33% of our CSA budget allocation to 50% of our CSA budget allocation. Doing so would result in the homeless shelters receiving a 17% increase in funding, and the nonprofit organizations would receive a 17% decrease in available funding. Our funding formula for the shelter beds should remain the same, which of course is the percentage of beds per shelter. And that concludes my presentation.
Great. We'll start with Commissioner Lockhart.
All good things. I appreciate the recommendations that you made, and I think that we're still going to be able to be nimble, probably more nimble than we have been in some of those areas. The one thing, things keep coming back to you, facilities a little bit, but we had talked about trying to co-locate and get your team to a different facility out of Reflections. What happens? Where are we with that? Yeah, where are we? That's a Chad question. Poor Chad.
Actually, we have all those.
Chad's coming up in 2 more presenters.
Yeah, okay, we'll hold that for Chad, but that is something that has been on I drive, but my traffic pattern goes in front of Reflections regularly, and I think about y'all, and I wonder, like, how close we are to getting that done, so that'll be helpful, not just for you, but for your customers.
Absolutely.
For sure. Right. So, I love the idea of changing the allocation of the CSA dollars. I think, we're going to hear potentially, if we go with that recommendation, a little bit of squealing from some folks, but I think it directs the dollars where they need to be directed right now, so thank you.
Commissioner Herr.
I have a few questions. Could you just explain how the Central Florida Regional contract saves us money? What did the contract do?
For the HCA, our HCA agreement, that was specifically for county residents, Seminole County residents who were low income, who were qualified as indigent, and they would receive care at HCA. That was the only hospital that we had this program with. And we would receive applications periodically. It wasn't heavily used, but the reason that we actually are recommending this is primarily because, A, it's a 40-year-old agreement that addresses specifically Medicaid, and we know HCA is receiving Medicaid reimbursement from many different areas, and it's the only hospital that we have this special agreement with.
Let me make the question clearer.
Sorry.
How did the cash exchange hands? Where does the savings come from?
We won't pay them anymore.
We represented that we're going to
Carrie
save
worked with it.
350 grand, right?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So once we qualified someone, the hospital would submit an application, and they would submit us a bill. Excuse me, I'm just getting over being sick. And then we would actually cut the hospital a check. It was based on the Medicaid formula on the number of days.
I just wanted that on the record.
Yes.
This has to stop. There's just no question about it. I do also appreciate the change in funding to keep heads in beds, especially given the new legislation passed at the state level. The $148,000 plus the $60,000 to move stuff in-house, I'm going to ask Commissioner Lockhart's question in reverse to us. Is that fully allocated? I'm sure it is, Tim. It just sounds low.
Yes, that's the full cost of 2 positions with overhead. That's-
2 positions with all overhead and all the stuff. Okay.
Yes.
And I think amazing work on the cost reductions, and really no service reduction.
Correct.
It's great work.
Commissioner Constantine.
Just one question and first of all, I agree. You're doing an incredible job. I'm so proud of you. And Kelly, with the opioids, I'm just amazed at how well you all are doing. When we're coming to the approval of the vacation rental registration resolution, great. Allowing the fees to be collected and applied to the General Housing Trust Fund. What's happening now? I thought that's what we were doing, so explain,
Well, we did not have the formal resolution until just recently, so I believe we have historically had some transfers into the trust fund from the vacation rental fees, but we formalized it by way of the resolution, and I
So Tim, help me out here. I think that she's looking at you too.
No, I can confirm every dollar that's received in that vacation rental account line gets transferred into the Housing Trust Fund.
Okay.
It's done as a follow-up. We see what was collected the prior year, and then we move it over.
I just was confused when that was there, when I thought that's what we were doing.
That's what we're doing.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Glory.
Allison, I think you and your group are doing a phenomenal job. Keep on doing what you're doing. I have no comments.
thank you.
Ditto. Very good. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much. We appreciate your attention to detail and bringing this in at savings this year. Good work.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one follow-up question.
Commissioner Lockhart.
On the Central Florida Regional contract, have we received a response from them when we notified them of that change?
We did not. We contacted them through certified mail, and we received no feedback whatsoever.
Okay. My historical knowledge on that, and it's all hearsay and rumor, there might be some folks that were here longer than I've been here that could remember, but my understanding was it had something to do in exchange for this building. When we moved into this building, there was some consideration with that. Is that part of that? Is that what you have learned, or is that?
County Attorney.
Commissioner, my office did look at that issue and worked with what is now the real estate staff, trying to evaluate, because there was some talk of that being an issue. We did not find that memorialized in writing anywhere.
Okay.
So if it's out there, I would be happy to look at it, but we were not able to find that.
Oh, I'm not sure it was necessarily in writing. It probably would have been some conversation at a late-night county commission meeting that was,
Before any of us were here.
before any of us were here.
Correct.
Well, it was not memorialized
say
in
that out
writing,
loud.
so it didn't prevent us from terminating that agreement.
Got it. Wonderful. Okay, thank you so much.
Anything else on community services? No, thank you. Seeing none, thank you all very much. Next up is Mr. Durr in Parks and Recreation.
But
We're fast.
I didn't even see that happen.
And you're going to want to pull those microphones close so we'll be able to, everybody hear you.
I think it's over.
Good afternoon. Is this good?
That's good.
And good afternoon. For the record, Richter, Director of Parks and Recreation Department. With me to my right is Michael Wersing, the Deputy Director, and to my left, the person who basically runs the show, Jacqueline Masseline, who I'm sure I butcher the pronunciation of your name every time I introduce you, so I apologize in advance.
So the Parks and Recreation total FY26 budget request is $30.1 million. 80% is in the general fund. It funds parks, natural lands, and libraries. The 8% sales tax figure is for lighting efficiency improvements at some of the county parks. Then we have 9% for the Wekiva Golf Course Fund, which is budgeted to be self-sustaining in fiscal '26 with no transfer from the general fund. The full line item of the Parks and Recreation Department can be found on page 139 of your supplemental packet or 385 of your work session document. The total budget for the department is reducing from $33.3 million to $30.1 million in fiscal '26, a reduction of 9.5%. If we focus just on the general fund, and tourism fund, excluding special revenues. The total base budget of the department is remaining flat at $10.2 million.
So on your screen is pretty much our functional working diagram. It includes our 4 divisions, including Parks, Recreation, Libraries, and Extension Services, and again, our business office, as well as our trail development, which is all in-house in terms of the services we provide. Go to the next slide. So starting off with the seminal moments, this is something that we have been working on for some time and looking at. This is the effective replacement of our existing infrastructure in terms of our sports lighting. If we look at where we spend or where we have some of our highest overhead, if you will, is the operation of these lights at our sporting facilities. There's actually 6 facilities on the list. We're missing a bullet in the middle of on that list of the facilities that we've been looking at. But essentially, this lighting technology is about 30-plus years old, to the point where it is costing an exorbitant amount of money to keep that system running. What we're looking at is then changing out that infrastructure with the type of infrastructure that we have at the 2 Boomba complexes right now. So we're not talking about redoing those. It's upgrading to LED sports lighting technology at some of our busiest facilities here in the county. So go to the next slide. That's an example of what those look like at the 2 Boomba complexes. Earlier this year, we brought a contract forward to you with a competitively bid lighting package with Musco Lighting. We worked out a way to be able to have this technology improved and switched out as a capital improvement over the next 2 years with working around our tournament and seasonal structure so that we're not shutting anything down for any length of time, and be able to work that out with Musco as well. The bottom line is that not only will it improve facility safety, it will keep us current with the rest of the market where we do have tournaments and economic impact tournaments at a lot of these facilities. But really what it's going to do at a conservative level is start to reduce our utility costs at these facilities by a minimum of about 35% as these things come online. Right now we're spending about $75,000 plus just in maintenance alone on this existing infrastructure. And again, this is outdated infrastructure. We've heard some anecdotal evidence of parts that had to be found online to try to be able to supplement some of the technology that we have out there. So a lot of different effects and positive effects towards our general fund, primarily being we're basically going to reduce our overhead at these facilities as we continue to operate them going forward. The second seminal moments was really looking at an existing fund that we have right now that is funded, which is the Seminole Forever program. As we've talked about in the past, the Natural Lands Bond Fund that has sustained us for a very long time, the dollars that were remaining in that program are currently being used to match a grant to replace some structures out at Spring Hammock Preserve. That's under construction as we speak. We have the ability to use some of that already budgeted dollars for needs that we have at some of our natural lands properties right now, which is allowable underneath the ordinance. And part of that also includes taking an existing FTE for our program manager who works on our budget to, you name it, all of our leisure guides and so forth, sort of our catch-all. Right now, that individual's spending about half their time to administer the first year of this program. So we've got the opportunity to potentially split fund her position as she continues to work on that and save at least the current general fund some dollars in that general overhead. Other budget highlights that we're looking at right now, and part of this is also looking at efficiencies. We've been working with Public Works and facilities at a centralized way at which we can both manage projects going forward in a more efficient way of doing so, as well as how we manage our assets across the county. So you name it, everything that we currently own that's in the ground and above our heads, an ability to go ahead and proactively and efficiently program in everything from proactive maintenance and to basically be able to manage that system a more effective way and give our staff additional tools and current tools to be able to do so, and do so using a platform that's similar across the board with other departments. So we've been working with IT on those about over the last year. Our lightning prediction and warning system that we have at a number of our parks throughout the county has aged out, and we're looking at needing a replacement of that to bring that current. Thankfully, that technology has also improved, so we will be improving public safety. We've got some scoreboards out at the softball complex that continue to basically run to the end of their life, where they literally just stop working. They are 30-plus years old, and we're slowly replacing those. And then we've got a proposal from our consultant to do the Phase 2 design of Deer Run Park that I know everyone will be looking for. We've got a master plan in place. We now have a cost on what that would cost to do the engineering for the rest of the particular project. That's waiting in the wings, and we'll be bringing something on that back to you at a future date. Some of our budget highlights and challenges for this particular year is just the cost of doing business, and you've heard the consistent themes throughout the course of the day. Just the increases of our utility bills at our various locations throughout the county alone over the last 5 years has gone up more than 25%. Landscape maintenance contracts, which we have a number of them when we had outsourced all of that work, continues to work well for us. However, is that once those contracts expire and we need to competitively bid them for a new contract, they never go down. So they get increased, and they usually get increased at the worst possible time, which is right in the middle of a fiscal year. That one particular contract had gone up, and it's been approved and is now in operation. That increased about $130,000. We found a way to absorb that within our current operating budget to offset that increase. We've got various end-of-life replacements, and while we talk about facilities and buildings, a lot of the things that we have inside those buildings are also aging out. So if you look at just the furniture in our libraries alone, we've been trying to find ways to replace that over time. We found ways to work with the Friends of Libraries to replace shelving and so forth, but we are in the need of doing a full-blown refresh of that system, some of these things which are 40-plus years old. The state aid to libraries program, which a lot of communities depend on, and we are one of them as well, that's not an insignificant amount of money. There is some concern that we may see that program start to either cycle down or yield less results back to the individual communities, so we're going to continue to monitor that and what the pressure that could do on future budgets. Our existing programs, thankfully, are in high demand and continue to be in high demand. When we now advertise for our summer camps, for example, for our eco camp, we now sell out in about 20 minutes, and we do that in February, so well in advance. We are looking at ways to go ahead and increase the capacity of those and do so hopefully as a revenue neutral kind of a situation, including the use of other facilities throughout the county, which may not be county-owned, and with some creative thinking to be able to have agreements with other entities to be able to use those facilities. And last but not least is a term that's used frequently is the shiny new things. That anytime that we plan for either a brand new facility or something being redeveloped or coming online, we've got to make sure that we bring those operational dollars back to you. Now, the good news part on the Rolling Hills and the Deer Run portions of that is we're already maintaining those properties at the level we would a park. So those are already in our budget. However, if we were then to open up the Deer Run building, for example, and staff that, that's obviously an increase. So we need to make sure that we've got a handle on what those costs are. We have funding models for what those look like. It's just a question of when. Lastly, with the conversations about the indoor complex, as we were back before you last month, that obviously as we're bringing together a refined building program and capital budget, that we're also refining what our staffing model and what our operational expenses are expected to be for those facilities. So again, anything new that we're bringing back before you, again, we need to make sure that we're accounting for the required maintenance and upkeep of those facilities as well, as they will impact our general fund.
That concludes our presentation.
Thank you very much. We'll start with Commissioner Delary.
Thank you. Rick, I'm glad that you're updating the lightning protection and warning systems. I was amazed to learn from other counties that not every county has them. I was surprised to hear that. I thought that was a regulation that was required, so kudos to you all. Definitely want to say thank you to your entire staff. They do a phenomenal job, not just as we see it, but as the citizens see it, and maintaining their facilities. I think that on so many levels, they do a great job. And not every time they hear it, because they're definitely in the weeds dealing with it. So you talked about a couple of contracts that are coming up mid-year. Is there any way to normalize them to come up in our own budget cycle so that we can be prepared? Is that possible?
I'm sure it probably is, but we know when these contracts come up, and I'm sure what Rick was mentioning, that we probably did put an increase in there. We just didn't know how big the increase was going to be.
All I was saying is if it's possible to normalize them so they're in our own schedule.
We could look
If
at that.
that's possible, that's great. If not, leave it as is.
Sure.
But kudos to you all. You're all doing a great job.
Thank you.
No other comment, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Herr.
I'll offer up a thought on that normalizing stuff to the fiscal year, because this happens in the benefits space relative. The clients that I have that have their benefits year off of their fiscal year only have a half of an impact of that increase in that fiscal year. So having it off cycle, as long as we're good planners, actually smooths out the rough years. When we say Wekiva is self-sustaining, is that due to deferrals of any sort? And are we fully allocating all of our costs? So is a portion of Rick's salary allocated into that expense, et cetera?
I said the FY26 budget was budgeted as self-sustaining. It is
I
operational.
heard that, that's why I'm asking the question.
It doesn't include any capital maintenance or improvements in the FY26 budget.
So it's really not? We're just holding steady for a year?
Our contract that we have with our provider, that's what we watch like a hawk and make sure that we are self-sustaining, at least that contract, since we have outsourced that management piece. So yes.
But
That's
there's
the asterisk.
greens fees.
Correct.
Right, Rick? This is a cash-generating operation.
That's correct.
And so if we're pretending that it's self-sustaining when it's not self-sustaining, and we're not raising the rates every year for people to play on a course that's probably got minimum tee times available, then we're missing out. And I would rather do it slowly over time, it's better for the residents, than do our normal, let's wait for 10 years and then whack them upside the head. So I think the accounting on it ought to be truthful and, not that it's not truthful, but fully transparent, fully allocated, fully loaded, so we really know what's going on with these.
Understood.
So that's just not a sustainable model. I do love what you've done with Seminole Forever Plan. I actually think it secures the sustainability of that program to start looking at how we self-contain the cost there. So I'm fully supportive of that. Great work as always. I always feel bad for the libraries, but we're just going to have to continue feeling bad for the libraries.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right, well, I mean,
Commissioner Lockhart.
I think there might be some sales tax money to help them out with some things.
that would be fabulous,
I think, yeah, I'm excited, I'm looking forward to those conversations.
And real quick, we've already, and this is another Chad issue, we have really worked hard on our libraries this past 2 years with the HVAC and the roof replacements at a lot of our libraries.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ditto on the golf course conversation. The golf course company that we are contracting with now, have we had conversations with them about our expectations with, how do I say this? Yeah, I'm trying to figure, it's late in the day, so I'm just going to say it. They had that DEP violation pumping water into the lakes in Sanford. Did we tell them, don't try that stuff over in the Wekiva?
Yes.
So they've been put on notice, don't screw it up.
But I think even before it came before the board, we had had that conversation with them, yes.
That's the 3:35 in the afternoon version of that question.
The scary part is I understood exactly what you were saying.
Yeah, okay, I appreciate that, that's great. Great job, as always. I do think, so I do feel a little guilty sometimes when I talk about Parks and Recreation, because I still feel an attachment for that year and a half that I was based out of, that I was thrown out to Parks and Rec. Get out of here, go over there. And I grew to have such an affinity for the work that is done and the way that that team accomplishes so much. And it's just a different quality of life service that's being provided for our citizens that no other department in this county has the opportunity to participate in. And so I do feel a little attachment there. I think that there is an opportunity, maybe philosophically, to have a conversation, not today, but down the road, about giving a dedicated millage to parks and libraries, because they always do get left out. And so when the increases occur, they are always the gum on the bottom of the shoe. And I just think it sucks. It's also the 3:35 in the afternoon. So for another conversation, another day, that might be something we need to talk about.
Good.
I think I should be good, yeah.
You should. You sure you don't want to go further? Oh, come on, Commissioner
I know,
Lockhart.
it's so much fun.
Commissioner Constantine.
To say it another way, your department is what makes the easiest way to make people see the quality of life in Seminole County. And that's so important to all of us. I mean, whether it's the trails, whether it's the libraries, I hear it all the time, whether it's, going to have the softball tournament that, tourism is putting together and you all are doing it, and, it's just the whole thing. So now with the Seminole Forever also, what I hear is so, it makes the people feel like they're connected to their county. So in talking about that, I do know that we are starting to talk about showing off, finally, after getting all the roads together, potentially Rolling Hills. I can't tell you how many times, and not in Rolling Hills, but outside of Rolling Hills, people continue to come up and say, hey, when's that going to start? When's that going to start? And I know that we're looking at it, and I think that that can be a showcase for everything else that's coming. If we can start providing that visual, that true visual. So I'm excited about that. So I'm really looking forward to that happening. But I want to go back to Wekiva also, because it is, I remember the auditor saying it's really not making, it's not breaking even like you all keep saying, and I get it, because we're not putting true costs in there. But I do know that we're every time we get a few dollars, we're putting in improvements here, and we've talked about some of the things that we need to do. But one of the things that I haven't heard in a long time is when you first took me on a tour of that place, we went upstairs. And you said, man, I can really use this for meetings and opportunities. And I still hear some folks that use it from time to time for whatever bridge or whatever the case may be, saying, when are we going to get that improved? So I don't want to start spending money on something until making, but where is that in the big picture?
So that will be presented along with some of the other facilities items that we've been working with Chad and his team on. Not to kick that one down, to the next presenter. But really, at this particular point, facilities was able to go through there last summer, do at least some cosmetic improvements, some changing out or some refresh of that room. The thing that our primary barrier at this particular point is literally a barrier in the fact that there is no elevator to the second floor.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
So at this point, we've looked at a number of different options with what we could possibly do with the existing building and where that could be located. So we have quotes from everything from a chairlift to an actual elevator that would be potentially located on the outside of that building, the outside of the room, to allow for the delivery of service both upstairs and downstairs. So that's really what we're waiting on next. The good news part of that is, even with the refresh that was done upstairs, as well as work that was done on the HVAC system last summer up there, we are seeing increased use just because of, from a comfort standpoint, of the folks that are at the golf course and our management company able to feel more confident about the ability to rent that space out. So yeah, we've seen an uptick in use.
And even though we're in Florida, am I wrong to remember a beautiful fireplace and everything in there?
It's there.
It's just gorgeous.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I'm done.
Hi. So, I don't have to have this right now, but the discussion with the golf course out of Wekiva, I don't disagree with, but I would like to know, and I'm not advocating, so that everybody gets this clear, I'm not advocating that we close this golf course, but if it were to be closed, what is the direct cost to this county to maintain it if it were closed? I think that's an important aspect that we should know as we consider whatever fee change or schedule you can do and whatever improvements are there. And then the clubhouse over at Deer Run. That is another example of a revenue generator that could be utilized as a wedding venue and any other venue that people would use that for, very much like the City of Lake Mary. I'm not advocating it's as nice as City of Lake Mary's complex, but we've had a lot of people reach out advocating, saying, hey, we could use a place like this for wedding venues or family reunions or other functions that the taxpayers could get a return on. And then finally, Cheddar Point. We promised the taxpayers of this county that it would be sold as part of the funding for Rolling Hills. The last time I checked in with staff, it's been 7, 8, 9 months ago, and the answer I got was, any day now, we're waiting on the last signature to come out of Tallahassee.
So as
Any idea where we're at now with that?
So I won't bore you with the details on the fact that our staff continues to bother DEP staff on a weekly basis at this particular point. Up until the point last week where we received confirmation from DEP that it is definitely in legal review, the final legal review, finally we came up on the queue that they promised us back in February, I believe it was, and yes, it is definitely in review. We'll continue to honestly pester them on a weekly basis until we finally get confirmation that, yes, they finished their legal review.
What I don't understand the legal review process, this has been going on for not a year, not 2 years, not 4 years, 5 years. And now we're just having a legal review?
That is correct.
Tallahassee.
Well, it's a substantial piece of property that belonged to the taxpayers of this county, so I would ask for support to ask the county attorney to just review all that past, and let's try to figure out what's happening, and if there's anything at all we can do to move that along, especially in light of the discussions we're having.
We'll do that, and my office has been involved
Okay.
since
Good.
I came on board.
Do the electeds in this county need to call somebody up there?
Yeah.
I already have.
Yeah, me too.
How'd that go?
Yeah.
I think you know the answer.
Mr. Chairman, it's probably easier if the attorney called the attorney.
So it's still in purgatory. Okay, got it. Good work. As somebody has already stated, this is one of the quality of life aspects that the citizens of this county can be proud of and rely upon, and that was no more clear than during the pandemic, unfortunately, to remind everybody of that, where everybody was able to get outdoors, get on the trails, go out and enjoy the parks. Even a lot of folks from around the state that didn't have that in their own county came here. So keep up the good work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. All right, next up is fleet and facilities that everybody's been waiting for with all the big questions.
Now we know where to put him on the
big goods,
agenda.
He's coming to the table with
Getting close to
13
the finale.
questions in his hand already.
Look at, he's bringing about a lot of backup here. Shared risk.
Good afternoon again, Chairman, Commissioners. Don't often have a great chance, probably meet the people behind the scenes actually getting the work done, and we have some new faces with us too. So Raymond Kelly to my right actually has been with the county for a few years now, but he is our program manager over our fleet services for the county, and you probably never even met him. Anthony Maddox is our facilities division manager, and he is new to the county, I think going on 6 months. Oh, 8 months now, okay. And then Nicholas Bro, who you know, actually Nick is the old timer in this group.
Right.
And Nick is our development services manager for project development.
Thank you, Chad. Yep. The Fleet and Facilities total FY26 budget request is $36.4 million. 84% of that is centralized in the general fund for fleet management, facilities maintenance, and countywide fuel. 13% of the funding is included, sales tax projects that are included in our fourth-gen referendum, and the other small percentages are for one-time projects in the fire fund and water and sewer fund. The department currently has 79 FTEs. We're proposing to eliminate one for a total of 78 FTEs. Full line item budget for the facilities department is on page 202 of your supplemental document and 587 of your work session book. The total bottom line increase for the department is going from 33.1 to 36.3 million, an increase of $3.2 million. I did want to provide this alternate slide that shows where FY26 budget remains the same, but the FY25 budget has been updated to reflect $1.2 million, which has been moved from other departments, primarily Public Works, into the centralized utilities fund. This is related to our seminal moment to help identify inefficient buildings and reduce utility costs. This is not a net increase to our general fund, however. We do full cost allocations of the Fleet and Facilities Department. Approximately 62% of the work performed by this department are for departments outside of the general fund, including the fire fund, water, sewer, and solid waste funds. So while we are increasing their operating budget, we are not increasing the total amount to the general fund. If we focus just on their base operating budget in the general fund, we're remaining flat at $18.9 million, which is effectively a $1 million reduction after transferring budgets into the department.
Thank you, Tim. And then for the Fleet and Facilities Department, as I mentioned, we have the Fleet Management group, and then under Facilities, we have Facilities Maintenance, and then the Facilities Development. And for those who may, and the public do not know what Facilities Development is, it's our construction project team for new construction and renovation projects. All right. So for seminal moments, and going through the budget, this year we were very, very aggressive. Obviously, some shortfalls, and really needed to kind of look at everything possible that we could do. And so one thing that we identified was on fleet side is the utilization of car allowances. So, and this is kind of a first step. So I'm looking at our division managers and our deputy directors right now. Again, these are individuals who don't carry tools on a truck. They're not, they're driving throughout the county. And as directors, most of us have a car allowance. So a car allowance, $2,700 a year. A new vehicle, let's say $40,000 a year, on our cheapest vehicle. You extend that out 10 years. And right now, our replacement, cycle for a vehicle is 12 years. I'm just using 10 years as an easy example, but you add in the cost of the vehicle, and I'm just using the cheapest vehicle that we purchase, add in the fuel, add in insurance, add in maintenance and repairs, again, far exceeds what a car allowance would do. Again, as leaders in the organization, it's our responsibility to make sure our teams have the tools, resources to do their job. That's imperative from that standpoint. So from this, I've said previously, it's making sure I look at a vehicle, it's a tool, and it's making sure that tool is correctly paired with the position and what needs to be done. So for FY26, at the minimum, we're looking at a $400,000 savings to the general fund, where we can now reallocate these vehicles to positions that would require a new vehicle for the 26 year. Also, I'd shared previously too about looking at utilization within the county. So on our fleet side, we looked at low utilization, and I would tell you there wasn't a whole lot of science behind the low utilization. Kind of looking at the overall of all the mileage per year of the vehicles, and we came up with, and again, it's a start of looking at, and it may not seem a lot, but like 50 miles a week, unless it's low utilization, so 10 miles a day. Identified those vehicles, and again, looking at working with our teams of looking at utilizing more of a pool vehicle between a group, program, or division, instead of assigning vehicles to each individual in each position as well. Also want to share too, this isn't, I would say, vehicles that we would call mission critical. You know, there's pieces of equipment and vehicles that you don't need it till you need it. And when you need it, you need it. And so we know that. So this isn't addressing those, but this is just your everyday light-duty, white fleet vehicle that we see parked and parked and parked and parked. And that's a $50,000, potentially $60,000 vehicle that's not being utilized as a tool it needs to be utilized for from that perspective. All right. And then we go to the facility side and looking at energy and water efficiency or water efficiency improvements. And this is, obviously this is a seminal moment, but it's also something that as a facilities team, we have already started to begin looking at and reviewing and looking at things that we can do to implement now, but that we are going to continue moving forward. So we're talking about building automation, our HVAC system. So I apologize for the issues we were having earlier this morning. Again, now it's hot, I know. Now that I'm over here, I'm hot. You know, our system wasn't responding, you know, and here I am texting away, and I'm like, okay, if I could get in that door, I can get on the roof, and I just turn the darn thing off, and that's what we did. And then we reset it and everything else. So again, looking at how we utilize building automation to control our systems. We are looking at currently 5 buildings, I would say more office buildings within the county, that systems run, they just run. There's no schedule. Now we are engaged with looking at scheduling systems to come in, these systems to come on at the right time. We're also working, the team has been developing, they've actually, within days, have developed a process that we can share with our staff. So that way, if there's after-hours events beyond normal hours or on the weekends, they can request AC instead of us just run as well. Lighting, same thing. Lighting on controls, but we don't have to be high-tech on lighting. We can put occupancy sensors in, so that way, if someone's in the room, the light goes off. So these are simple things that we just that are working on and that we're going to continue to implement and refine. LED lighting. When I arrived in the county, we were still replacing fluorescent lights with fluorescent lights bulbs. Amazed. We've come a long ways in a very short period of time, and so we were able to secure, our team here was able to secure a grant, and at Central Branch Library, we're going to be converting that building over to LED, and then any additional funds from that we can roll into another library system. But also as we go to replace light bulbs, I don't believe there's a fluorescent light bulb left, or there was cases and cases and cases when I arrived. They've been banned. We've banned the cases. So we're replacing with LED from there. We've also been partnering with our environmental services team on the Florida Water Star, looking at water conservation and looking at buildings where, again, low flow fixtures, water aerators on faucets, and those, again, simple things that can have huge impact as well. And that's what I have for my seminal moments. All right. Budget highlights. So we have been active in working with consultants, performing facility condition assessments, especially around HVAC systems. So the buildings we focused on for our priority has been the public safety building, fire stations, and the libraries. So that is almost completed in the sense the evaluations have been done, but the consultant is also working to put together as a prioritization, to help prioritize when things need to be replaced, and also cost for this replacement so we can start planning and budgeting. And in that system, as I put in here, it's looking at our large HVAC components, boilers, air handlers, pumps, and condensing units. Far picture on the left, just an example, that's an air handler unit on the county services building above Mr. Gray's, or actually office, or near his office, that is 44 years old. Yeah, it's life expectancy under good conditions, 15 to 20 years, and that's with proper maintenance under good conditions. Since I've been here, we've had, some water, third floor, second floor, and other issues and so forth. So elevators, we know, again, the issues that we've had throughout the county with our elevators. And again, it's to take a more proactive approach than a reactive as well. So I appreciate everyone's patience as we've been kind of working through this. As we're gathering this data then we will be utilized to create maintenance and replacement programs. And one thing, I know there's been a great deal said about AI, utilization of AI throughout the county. And, facilities, we don't want to be left out. So we've actually been working on for several months now, just kind of researching and demoing software that, again, will allow us a kind of predictive to predict, the items that, again, from life expectancy, gathering data from our work order system, when should it be replaced? If we only have a certain amount of dollars this year, like that never happens, we only have a certain amount of dollars and budgets are tight. If we only have this pot of money, where's the best place to put it to get the best return on our investment? So we're looking at all these things to make sure we have, I'll call, smarter budgets as we move forward as well. Challenges. I'm not going to read through all the challenges. We've heard them, my colleagues. Inflation continues to be a concern. It's a shell game for us on our side. We do, as I say, we're digging out of a hole. The goal is to be proactive, not reactive. But the reality is a lot of what we do is reactive in that nature. And our team has done a great job in responding with that. We make it work, and that's what we're going to do.
That concludes our presentation.
Very well. We will go to Commissioner Lockhart to begin.
Sure. We've said for years that we are holding this building together with duct tape and bubble gum. And at some point in time, you're just spending too much money on duct tape and bubble gum, and the environment's just not conducive to good work. So I congratulate you for the work that you are doing, and thank you to the team that helps to hold it all together. Shout out to Dave, who this building is his baby. It's been his baby for years, and we've got some tough decisions to make moving forward, but every single time this board, but prior boards have talked about what do we do with this building and how do we get out. It was supposed to be a temporary place for this organization to operate out of in 1980 something. And that temporary plan didn't work out so well because we historically have been an incredibly fiscally conservative organization that has said, we'll make do, we'll figure it out, we won't spend the money. And now we are hemorrhaging cash trying to not spend money. So it is crazy. The company that we hired years ago to do the energy efficiency audits and all of that.
Yes, engineering.
Or maybe Hanson.
Thank you. So is that the consultant that you're working with that's helping to give you suggestions of ways to, walk me through that?
For the HVAC, they are the consultant we're using for the assessment. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so are you utilizing other organizations to help with other?
We are. We're spreading the work. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And have you been able to identify yet where the break-even point is of what's worth investing those dollars in a building where we may be vacating? Where is that point? And will you let us know where that point is before we make those decisions?
So intentionally, I did not have them, assess this building. And even though, again, we didn't have them look at all our buildings, I felt with the priority of our public safety the buildings our men and women live out of 24/7, and then our libraries that, directly serve our community as well. So that's where the focus is. I know, again, just limit of time and dollars, and I know obviously there's an abundance of a need, but we have to, kind of choose where we start. Because I was shocked, we had nothing to start with, so.
Got it. All right, thank you very much.
Commissioner Constantine?
I'm just going to say, Chad, the confidence level that I have in this department has just grown immensely since you and your staff has been together. And I mean, little things like I remember when we started talking about LED lights, and first person said, "Well, we have too many other lights, so we're not going to change." I mean, that was 10 years ago, and so thank you. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Commissioner Delory?
Thank you. Thank you, Chad. Thank you, team, for all their hard work. The conversation that you and I had in my office was about the fleet chargeback, and you were telling me that the fleet that is programmed to our general fund doesn't have any chargeback. Can someone explain to me why? Because
I'm going to
Yeah, I
talk
think,
to Tim.
sure. I think that was a misunderstanding. No, we do a full cost allocation of the fleet department.
Because I asked that several different ways.
Yes.
And what came back to me in my office was that we weren't charging back to the general fund. So that's not correct.
When we first began the chargeback process, we did not charge the general fund. We just left those costs. His costs start in the general fund, and we just left them there. Over the years, we've evolved where we do its program allocations. So whether you're in the general fund or in the solid waste.
That's what I thought, and that's why I wanted to ask you
I
again.
apologize for that misunderstanding.
That's all right.
Yeah, I apologize as well.
With the HVAC and the energy efficiency, is it based on electricity, or is it based on other factors?
It's right now, we're just looking at the equipment utilization. And where we've, from the building automation side, making sure, again, chillers, when are they, if they're going off, when are they coming on? When is that demand rate? When are we asking for that demand so we have the best rate as well? And that we're not pulling all our demand at one time as well, because we're being charged for more of that. Do we have pumps that are functioning? Do we have other large pieces of equipment that are
So like when
functioning as
Hanson
well?
normally does a system like that, they allocate X amount of BTUs per square foot per either.
Yeah. Right now, they're just looking at equipment, standalone equipment.
Okay.
And from that perspective.
Do you know how much the existing system we put in with the chiller plant, do you know what the delta T is across that?
I do not.
Okay. End of my questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Herr?
It is late, and so let me pull myself together here, because I suddenly have the giggles. Okay, first of all, car allowances versus buying a new car. The private sector started doing this like 40 years ago. So that's awesome. That's just awesome. I know we have a small number of car allowances now, but I would tell you that the accounting for that needs to be current generation, and that otherwise the employees end up getting taxed. So I'm sure you guys know this, but let's make sure that we don't have anybody getting an unfavorable tax situation and a surprise because we didn't do the accounting right for it. And I know this because I struggle to meet that deadline every stinking year, and I have a person in accounting that keeps me square. Scheduling HVAC, thank you, just thank you. We are so glad you're here. It's crazy how far we've come in the very short time that you've been here. I do have a giant question related to Commissioner Lockhart's pointing out that the money going to HCA was maybe relative to this building. Do they want it back? That's solve our problems. I love the starting point of looking at where we have people living and looking at where we're serving the public. That's perfect, that's spot on. And then I would just point out that smarter budget process that you alluded to earlier is just ripe for a dashboard. Just what a dashboard does. So I offer that. Thank you for everything you've done.
We used to have a carpool program here years ago.
That's carpool
And-
or car allowance?
Carpool.
A pool
Where-
of cars that you
Pool of
could
cars
use
that
the car that was
anybody,
in there.
certain divisions could use because they only use them once every month or whatever.
It's not as big as your carpool, personal carpool.
Yeah, well, that's a whole different discussion. You've got your challenges ahead of you. You've already met a lot of those challenges. So I'm going to ask you a very difficult question, because you've been here long enough to see all the buildings, feet on the ground, eyes to see everything. Is there anything that you cut out of your budget that you believe should not be cut out?
Well, end of
Don't
the
look at
day-
Darren.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna look, because,
And be honest, be rawly honest.
oh, yeah, no. End of the day, just like my colleagues, we had to make tough choices. And I would say it's this way every budget year. And knowing that there's not enough all the time to do the things we need. I would say, again, part of my decision to come here was that I watched your budget meeting that summer beforehand, and I saw from the commission, that the dedication, the commitment to, into the facilities, there was a need, and you were committed to meeting that need. So the reality of it is, there's going to be there's a larger need than we have resources. That's for most companies, public and private. It doesn't really change.
Right.
Okay, so the key is that we've got to be on the same page of the priorities, and then how do we, again, plan and make that work? So as we're digging out in the hole, and this is, in my mind, this is taking longer than I would prefer. And to have this planned out, strategized out. But as we're digging, we're working on a plan, strategy, so then we can share that to make sure then our priorities are aligned and that we systematically work to correct these things. So yes, we have HVAC issues throughout the county. We've had HVAC issues. Our team has been very resilient. We're responding as we need to. Yes, we're making Band-Aid repairs on some things, but it's what we're prepared to do and what we're doing. We've also made some I would say, we've accomplished some really good work on the last 2 years. And so, am I going to turn down money from Mr. Jackson, Mr. Gray? Heck no. We'll put it to good use. But at the end of the day, it's a challenging budget year. I understand, and we're going to make it work within that, and we'll make the right decisions. And we're dealing with a 44-year-old air handler. I mean, when is that going to poop out?
Right, yeah.
That's not the only one.
Yeah, fair answer.
And everything else. So we will pivot as we need to pivot and work within that. But I appreciate the question.
Sure. Fair answer, and I think most of us, if not all of us, understand you're digging out of a hole for a lot of years, a lot of years of, just patch it. It'll get better next year. Well, sooner or later, that rooster comes home to roost. And I believe if the citizens of this county took a walk on the first and second floor of this building and observed the carpet conditions, the office conditions that some of our employees are asked to work in, they'd be appalled. Now, there's certainly some that think they ought to work out on the front lawn, but that's a whole different matter. But the reality is, we have utilized this building until, it's insanity. When I get off the elevator on the third floor and smell the mustiness that's in the air, it tells us a lot about the age of the building and what has occurred, through the many, many decades. So that is a very fair answer, and I sincerely appreciate it. And you have done good work in identifying areas of savings in certain buildings, and I think we're going to look forward to more of those savings, but also the benefits of having those improvements that return to the taxpayer money that they've already invested in infrastructure that is not wise to keep throwing Band-Aids at for decades, because it costs more to do that than it does just to replace it. And that's on us up here. It's on our staff to clearly identify the good, the bad, and the ugly, so we have that truthfulness and that full transparency to make those tough decisions that, quite frankly, we were elected to do. So I want to make sure that we do get all the direct information we need to make those hard, tough decisions. So thanks again for everything you guys are doing. Welcome, long overdue to have somebody like you and your team looking after these things, so we appreciate it very much.
Could I just say
Yes.
two words real quick? And I want to thank Chad Wilski and the team over there. If you remember when I first came on board, facilities and fleet was shoved into a different department that really just lacked some direction on it. No offense against our public works team, but that's not their expertise. And when Christian Swinson and Tricia Johnson and I was like, okay, we need a top-notch facility person to come. And one, you all had told me the priorities when I came on board here, and facilities was a big priority. We had a deferred maintenance list that's still, right, that we had no maintenance plan on a lot of our buildings. It was just, it was tough. And so when we found Chad and Chad joined us, that's the first thing he told me. He said, I saw your commitment to bringing your facilities back up to date, and that's what I wanted to join your team for. So him and his team has done a phenomenal job. He does have a good budget, so don't get me wrong. He does know if he needs something, because you'll notice in our budget submittal, there is a deferred list of a lot of things. That is not that we're never going to do those, but as we need them, I will bring those back to the board. Or if you see something on there that you need to be included, please let me know as well. So I appreciate you, Chad, and your team by bringing us to the modern level. We're not there yet, but we'll get there.
Well, good stuff. Thank you very much. Next up is going to be our information technology group, who's been very, very active here in the past several days, getting things, websites up and all those kinds of things. It's good stuff. Mr. Joe Alcala. Joe, welcome.
Thank you. Yes, you're right. Both Chris's team and our team has been very busy getting the new website up and running and operational. So the team's done a yeoman's job over the weekend, especially Father's Day weekend as well. So thank you.
Good work.
The Information Technology Department's total FY26 budget request is $15.2 million. They have 68 FTEs. They're proposing to eliminate one for 67 FTEs moving into next year. Their entire budget is centralized through the general fund. However, approximately 42% of the services are related to other departments and other funds, so those are charged back to those appropriate funds. The FY26 budget of $15.2 million is a decrease of $1 million from FY25. The reduction in personnel is primarily related to an internal reorganization. If you look at just the base operating budget in the general fund, they are relatively flat at $4.7 million.
Thank you, Tim. So what we've presented here is basically how we are organized today. The biggest change that you'll notice on this slide compared to previously is the security component. That has been reallocated, or relocated, I should say, to report directly to me. I felt it was very important to provide visibility and support to that area, obviously in light of the cyber challenges that all of us are facing across the country. So for the seminal moments, I can just essentially wrap this up into one word, and that's automation. Both from a process perspective, and that is really looking at some of the human processes that we have interaction in, and looking at finding ways and identifying means and methods to automate those to reduce potential clerical error and speed the delivery and execution of those services and processes. Associated with that, we've heard Chad talk a lot about building automation. One of the things that, obviously from my side of the house, is ensuring that as these buildings come online, the underlying network that those HVAC systems, lighting systems, and everything are connected to are ready and prepared to be able to support us moving in that general direction and making sure that they're done in a secure manner, more importantly than anything. When it comes to moving the needle, I spent the first 90 days asking a lot of questions and having a lot of conversations with my peers and each of you as well. Several things came out of those conversations, but more importantly, we've been able to establish, or I've been able to establish some initial data points that I can now measure myself against going forward as to, where are we, where have we come from, and where are we going, and are we measuring successfully or unsuccessfully. I think the other aspect of that is again, back to the realignment. I mentioned to you about security earlier. One other aspect that we've changed is project management has been reallocated and moved to the business office. That individual reports directly to me and has really given me an opportunity to work with our project management office to look at our project portfolio, all of the work that we are doing, and looking at it from a strategic aspect to ensure that we're working on the right projects at the right time. And speaking of projects, these are our major projects that we are currently working on with our partners here across the county. These major projects, we're terming them as transformational, meaning they are changing how we operate and how we operate as a business and as we operate as a county. As you heard Jose talk about the Acela, the project with relation to the building department and how permitting and the future of what that looks like. There's a few major projects proposed for next fiscal year that we've talked about. Most importantly, one is the bottom one, the end-user computing technology refresh. Essentially, that's getting us prepared for Windows 11 and the upcoming security requirements associated with it. And finally, here's a roadmap. We've talked a lot about projects, but this kind of gives you a sense of when projects are starting, when they're ending based on color coding, and the number of projects and kind of, how they are in relation to one another.
Looks like candy.
And finally, the budget challenges. We've, the department this calendar year, we've had a lot of, you heard a lot from the other directors as well. The cost of doing business is going up. We've seen that across many of the contracts that we manage. We've had some go anywhere from 50 to 200% increase just this current fiscal year. So trying to prepare for that has obviously been a challenge, and absorbing those cost increases has been a challenge as well. So I buzzed through that, quite frankly, rather quickly, because I know we're all here really to see Tim and hear from Tim, so I'm the last gentleman standing between you and him. So any questions that you may have?
We'll start with Commissioner Delory.
Thank you. Joe, welcome.
Thank you.
I know sometimes it's not easy being thrown into the deep end, but you're doing it quite well.
Well, thank you, sir.
And I know that you have a lot of great people behind you and also beside you. The slide that I'm concerned about is the last slide you showed us, which is the significant budget challenges. And the challenges on the second bullet point that I'm concerned about is removing security and network initiatives. Can you go into deeper detail with that? Because what I'm concerned about is the way things have been changing technology-wise. It's always changing. And I'm always concerned about either cybersecurity or someone doing something with our webpage, or the list can go on and on. I'm sure you can do a better job describing it than I can. And since that's on the page, I'd like for you to go deeper into that, please.
Yeah, certainly. So we looked at all of the current initiatives that we had either in place or were considering for the coming 12, 18, 36 months. As a result of the current budget aspect, we were asked to look and identify ways to keep our budgets flat. And really what was removed as far as initiatives were what I would characterize as a bridge too far at this point in time. There were underlying processes and procedures that needed to be in place really to support those initiatives that had not yet been fully developed or implemented. So there was no sense in my mind, I didn't want it to become shelfware. buying it, having it sit on the shelf while we got to it type of situation.
So you're not talking about security and network on our existing systems then?
On our existing systems, no.
So in other words,
Yeah,
what was that?
no, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's the way I read that.
Okay, sorry.
And I just wanted to make sure from clarity standpoint that that's not the case.
Okay.
That we're not opening ourselves or exposing ourselves to an issue that we may regret
Oh, yes, no, sir.
6 months or a
Understood.
year from now. That's my concern.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Constantine.
First of all, I'm glad to have you. Thank you very much. I see that, the whole staff is kind of like picked up the ball and really are, moving in the right direction together, and I just appreciate that. And thank you for a well-developed budget.
Thank you.
Commissioner Herr.
So I think it's fantastic news on the direct reports of project management and security. That's going to change the speed with which we do everything in both of those areas, and that's a fabulous thing. I love the direction on automation. We're behind. We know. We're not a little bit behind. We are a lot behind. As I go around to my clients that are other government entities, some of which some people know really well, they're way beyond where we are. And that's for two reasons from my perspective. One is we haven't invested in technology to the degree that we should, and two is we have a lot of shelfware. So that move is fabulous, too, to delay those things until we have policies, procedures, processes, and actually a commitment to them. That's a big deal. I didn't hear anywhere referenced is the use of AI. I'm sure that's in your mind, probably not in this budget, but we need to start thinking about it, or we're going to be behind there. I realize we have a big catch-up to do, but there's a lot of things that I think are happening in that field that actually would bring major efficiencies here. If I go back to slide 88 and look at that major project list, I do question, and maybe this could be a yes or no answer, just so you know. When we go through all of those, do those actually feed into, we're implementing new programs in every single one of those areas, we've already approved them. Are they going to feed into, for example, the budget or into other departments that need to know that data? Is there an interconnectivity? Because from my perspective, one of the things that we were always challenged with is each department had their silo and they didn't speak. And I know Tim has a request that got denied for $150,000 budget software that I actually pulled out and said, if this thing connects us to all the other areas, that's magic, we need to do it. So my question is, does this connect to anything else? Do these connect to anything else?
So you're spot on. And during this current, or this most recent tech request process, Tim and I talked a lot about that regarding what I would characterize as seeing a lot of similarities, people asking for a lot of the same things, and looking at that holistically and going, well, wait a minute, if we've got 3 departments asking for in this case, let's say project management software.
Management.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. Let's take a step back and look at that holistically and find out, is there a solution out there that works for everybody? Now, it might not be the perfect solution for each one individually, but is there an opportunities for economies of scale aspect? And we did have a couple of conversations around that. To this aspect, I'd have to get back to you on that, but I don't believe each of these are very discrete and unique to themselves in this case. But to your point about AI, obviously, when we're stepping into that arena, we want to make sure we're following proper procedures and practices, if you will. So the team is currently developing an AI policy associated with that. We do have the training team. One of the things I've asked about the training team is potentially looking at creating AI fluency training. If you've been around the what I'll characterize as the digital assistants, the Alexas in the series, if you were an early adopter, you had to get the syntax just right in order to maximize the value that those tools provided to you. It's no different with AI. You've got to ask the questions in the right manner in order to get that real maximum value out of it. So I see that as being an area of opportunity as we begin to exploring these AI tools to help educate our workforce really how to interact and how to ask those proper questions.
Can I add on something real quick?
Absolutely.
Just because someone joined us in our meeting this afternoon, and I want to recognize him, and that's Alexander de la Portilla. He is our graduate student that is helping us with our AI expert.
AI man.
He is the tip of the iceberg. His next, he's been working with us for a couple of weeks now, and his next workload is actually working with IT, so we're getting ready to get that all set up. So that is just a tip. Also, this week we met with another group that actually will look at our AI processes as well, which we're going to include the whole team there too. So it's cutting edge stuff, and a lot of us don't know about it and don't understand it, and so that's why we're bringing in, I don't want to say the younger folks, but the younger folks to actually help us with that and educate us a little bit.
For the record, I use it. Not younger. Just wanted to point that out.
You're youthful.
Don't start. Oh, my gosh, don't make me come over there.
Anything else, Commissioner?
No, thank you. Thank
Commissioner
you.
Lockhart.
Along with the conversations about AI, I hope that you'll be able to look to maybe other local governments who have developed policies around its use. Because as with any technology, we went through this when social media became a thing. Like, I wanted to create a Seminole County Facebook page for the centennial, and you would have thought that I mean, it was, you want to do what? No, we don't have a policy for that. How are we going to retain it? How are we going to, I mean, it was a very, very dicey situation. So who'd have thunk, right? So now here we are, years later, and we're talking about using something that's very new and in the government space, right? And so policy is probably going to be really important to wrap around that. I've had so many personal instances of AI gone wrong, where you think you're asking the question relating to Sunrail and links, and somebody was at the airport and they asked, how do I get to Lake Mary from the airport? And AI, something, ChatGPT, whatever it was, picked up articles where we were talking about in the future connecting the airport, right? And it couldn't determine that it was an aspirational topic versus current. And so this poor person, I met them at the Link Central station just haphazardly. They were like, I don't know how I got here. I got on a bus and the phone keeps telling me where to go and what to do. And they were completely and totally lost. So, it's a great tool when it gives you the information that's accurate and correct. And so I can see citizens potentially trying to utilize something that we create and getting the wrong information, and then what, right? So that's my tale of caution and woe on AI. I think you're doing a remarkable job with the short bit of time that you've had to drink from the fire hydrant here. We have, as an organization, delayed expenditures on technology for decades. It's just been another one of the things that we feel like, well, that's, the phones still work, don't they? I mean, can you still dial them? Yeah. Well, all right. Or can you still buy parts on eBay? Well, yeah. Okay, we'll keep doing that.
Right.
I mean, that's literally been the attitude of this organization for decades. So
Rotary phones work fine. Rotary phones work fine.
Yeah, they work fine. So you are definitely coming into a backlog, and I think one bite at a time is how you're going to wind up eating this elephant. So congratulations, I think.
Thank you.
And thank you for the work that you're planning to do and already doing.
Thank you.
Thank you for getting us to the 19th century. I look forward to the 21st.
We'll make sure there's a dashboard in there somewhere for you. How's that sound?
Program management would be a great thing. For any of us to, just from our desks or remotely, be able to look and see who has got their fingers on something now that we can call and go, we have a constituent issue, or just look it up and find out, hey, it's illegal right now, or, it's been assigned, whatever the case might be. But good work, and hopefully you'll continue to uncover and update us and get us, like I said, into the 21st century at least, and then we can go from there. So good work. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
All right. Now we have Mr. Jex. Does anybody need a break before we get Mr. Jex for any reason?
We got 30 minutes, let's get it done.
Do you have a hard stop, Bob?
I need to leave a little after 5.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll get started.
Please.
Sure. First, to quickly reference the budget software that was deferred.
Wasn't denied.
That was deferred by the department director before it got to the county manager, and it is an example of a common process here. The directors identify budgets early in the process, and things ultimately can't all be funded. The FY26 total budget, as proposed, is $1,228,078,463. When you look closely, the general funds at the bottom, which match our Act for General Funds, are $459 million. Special revenue or legally restricted funds, and our sales tax fund, fire, MSTU, and tourism, $249 million for enterprise funds, including water and sewer and solid waste. We have our debt service funds at $18 million, $900,000 in capital funds, and then $67 million for our health insurance fund, liability, and workers' compensation funds. The next bunch of slides are going to reference our general fund forecast, which is on page 229 of your supplemental packet. So the major revenues in the general fund include our ad valorem, which is based on, this figure is based on the current 4.8751 mils. And this is where you see the growth of 6.7% or $16.6 million going into fiscal year 26. But do note that since fiscal year 23, the growth rate has been decreasing. Next, we have our half-cent sales tax. This goes into our general fund as well, separate from the county's infrastructure penny tax. This revenue has actually been declining some since fiscal 23, and we are forecasting $30 million in fiscal 26. Next is state shared revenues. These are also generated from sales taxes collected by the state and then generated and distributed to the counties. For fiscal 26, we're forecasting $13 million. Next, we have our general fund utility tax. This is separate from our water and sewer utility. This is a very steady revenue. Fiscal 26, we're forecasting $9.6 million based on the current 4% collection. And finally, the final major revenue we have is our communication service tax. This is a 5% tax on internet streaming and mobile services. It has been falling since fiscal 22, and we're projecting $4.9 million in fiscal 26. So total revenues, including all major revenues, the smaller revenues, and one-time revenues, we're projecting a total of $345.6 million, which is an increase of 10.6%. Moving on to expenditures, this shows our expenditures by service area in the general fund, where you see we're projecting $380.5 million, or an increase of $26 million. Built into those budgets include some inflationary costs that we've experienced. These are actual cost increases experienced by the county over the last 5 years. We have a 49% increase in energy cost. We have a 67% increase in the cost of a light-duty work truck, 87% for mass transit, 48% for road materials, 78% increase in the cost of medical health insurance claims, and a 54% increase in salaries related to public safety service, including retirement and insurance. This is compared to a 37% overall increase that we've seen in revenues. Some of the reductions that we've made, so we have $1 million proposed for the reduction in FTEs that are in the current FY25 budget, an additional $3 million reduction in Seminole Moments, and then other base budget reductions of $1 million. The total $5 million reductions that you see are separate and apart from any reductions that were made by the constitutional officers before their requests were submitted to the board. So that $5 million is coming out of the green on the bottom, the $63 million in personnel cost and the $15 million in base operating. This is a snapshot of the structural balance. So for fiscal 26, you see the $345 million in revenues and the $380 million in expenditures. This slide shows a little more detail. This is the slide we went over this morning. This shows the in the afternoon, this shows the growth of $30 million in revenues since fiscal '24. The increase in transfers to the constitutional officers over that time, and then the all other non-constitutional transfer budgets, including personnel, mandates, operating, and projects, growing from 145 to 154 over the last 2 years, and the total structural balance deficit at the bottom. This is a slide that shows since 2021. You see the total increase in revenues at 37.1%, and the total expenditure growth at around 55%. So looking at some revenue opportunities in the general, that would affect the general fund, the county currently levies 10 cents in gas taxes. We have the opportunity to levy an additional 5-cent gas tax, which would generate approximately $1.1 million per penny, or $5.5 million total. The FY26 proposed budget does include this revenue being increased at $5.5 million, and that shows up as a reduction and a transfer to our mass transit fund and the general fund. This is just a snapshot of the surrounding agencies, and you can see there's not a whole lot of correlation between those that levy the additional 5 cents and the average price of gas. The chart in the middle on the bottom shows when the gas tax was initially introduced, allowed by the state in 1985. Gas was 75 cents a gallon, so the 5 cents represented about a 6.7% increase or tax. In 2025, at $3.14 a gallon, it represents about a 1.6% tax. And the pie chart on the right is intended to show that of the counties, in the 67 counties in the state of Florida, 33 levy the full 5 cents, 30 levy 0 cents, and 4 levy between 2 and 4 cents. Moving on to our general fund utility tax, which is a tax on electric, water, gas, and propane. The county currently levies 4%. We are allowed to levy up to 10%, and the FY26 budget includes $13.1 million, assuming that increase to 10%. Surrounding counties, all surrounding counties levy the full 10% except for Osceola, which levies 8%. And within Seminole County, 6 of our cities levy 10%, and the city of Altamont levies 8%. The final major revenue we'll go over is our general fund millage, where we currently levy 4.8751 mils. The FY26 estimated revenue is $54.4 million per 1 mil. The FY26 budget includes a proposed increase of half a mil, which would generate about $27.2 million. This chart attempts to normalize the surrounding county millages. Our millage is very simple. We have 3 millage rates that cover the general, fire, and road services, not including the school board or water management at the bottom. Other agencies they break out their millage more. If you go to the bottom, the total BCC ad valorem functions covered by our millage is 7.75. If you exclude fire, we are at 4.985 mills, which is much lower than any of the surrounding counties. This is just one example of a property tax bill in Seminole County. If you have a home with a $550,000 just or market value, and the average Save Our Homes cap, which caps the taxable value growth at 3% or CPI, currently, per the property appraiser, the average savings is $200,000. That would lead to a $350,000 assessed value. We have an additional $50,000 in homestead exemptions, which would get you to a $300,000 taxable value on that $550,000 home. If you apply the formula of our current millage, 4.8751, you take the $300,000 divided by 1,000, multiply it by the millage, and we assume the 96% discount for prepayment. That gives them a current bill at about $1,400. If we do increase the millage by 0.5 and apply the same formula, that would cost that homeowner $144 per year, or about $12 per month. And this is a slide that shows the Seminole County General Fund millage history. Going back to 1991, we levied 5.4 mils. That dropped down to 1999, 2000, where we got it to 4.99 mils. It remained there until 2007, when the state introduced property tax reform, and the millage dropped to 4.35. 2009, property values fell, so we had a roll forward of the millage rate to 4.51. In 2010, the millage was increased to 4.9, which was below where it was before the reform. And then the board dropped the millage to 4.8751 mils in 2011, where it remains today. That concludes my presentation.
And again, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, this was just, you've seen this back in March at our retreat. You've seen it in May that we just had it. I wanted Mr. Jex to share that again. Again, no decisions have to be made today, but just to keep it in front of you all. Our next meeting is in July 22nd, where we'll finish the other operating departments as well. We'll talk about the millage rate to send for the trim notices.
Sure. Okay, we'll go to public comment. Do we have anybody here from the public to comment? If so, please read their names aloud and ask them to come up. And if there's any that are written comments, if you would circulate that to the board, it'd be great.
First up, we have Bill Hyde.
Mr. Hyde. Let me guess, Mr. Horvath.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Bill Hyde. I live at 2379 Audley Street in Oviedo. First of all, I apologize to the staff for taking up 3 more minutes of your time this afternoon. I know it's been a terribly long day, but it's been very enlightening to me. I can't do the accolades like you guys can because I only get 3 minutes to speak. So,
well, if you're talking nice, we might give you a few more. Keep going.
I won't be talking nice for long.
Hold for it.
Darn it.
Yeah. I can't give enough accolades to some of the staff that I've worked with in the last 6 months to a year, some of whom we haven't always gotten along with, but, you know, things have gotten done, and I appreciate it. So today, I heard some good, and I heard some bad. I heard something that tinkled my ear, and that was I heard give back. Allison, thank you very much for using the word give back. Taxpayers love to hear that. I heard something really bad, and that was the 24 and 72-hour shifts for the firefighters. That, if you thought the sheriff's ask was going to be tough, you wait till that comes forward, and we're all going to be talking about that one. That one's going to be very difficult. I do want to thank the sheriff for giving me 10 minutes to vent my spleen without locking me up in his correctional facility. That was interesting. I do have to say, though, that the state legislature has failed our seniors again this year. They had an opportunity to give us a little bit of a break, a $1,000 break. It was on the table early. They brushed it aside, and they gave a lot of tax breaks, but none of it ended up helping your senior homeowners. It went to tourists, it went to casinos, it went to business taxes. What happened? Did our legislators forget us? Believe me, my 2 legislators have already heard from me on the news I got last night. So our property values increase, but you know what? It doesn't help me at all. I'm a senior. I'm stuck here. I got to pay the taxes. Where does the money come from? Okay, you might hear it's only $144 a year, but when you're a senior on fixed income, folks, that means something to us. So I hope before July the 22nd, y'all can work a little bit harder on it. I know some of the words I heard were very, you know, I'm not budging, but that's your job to work with that. So I want to thank you for your time. I think I may have just saved you 3 minutes on July the 28th because I've said what I need to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Next, please.
John Horvath.
Mr. Horvath. And is there one more that's just written?
Yes, sir.
If you could hand that to Commissioner Lockhart, and I'll ask her to read that when Mr. Horvath is completed. Mr. Horvath, welcome.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, John Horvath, 1004 Bradford Drive, Winter Park, Florida. I tell everybody that's a Seminole County residence, but a Winter Park mail-in address. I was born and raised here. My dad was in the grow business, so I remember what this county looked like in 1950 when there was only 25,000 people living in the entire county. Now we're hitting 500,000 people, and that's a lot of goods and services that need to be provided. And I've been attending these budget hearings long before many of you were sitting up there, so I remember when the budget hit $500 million back, I don't know how many years ago, and people were having a conniption fit, but everything's gone up in cost. I was at a meeting mentioning the cost of a fire truck at $600,000, and Commissioner DeLaurie was very kind, said, John, they're at $1 million now for a fire truck, and we had that graphic in there showing the $600,000 to the nearly $1 million. Everything's gone up, and what do? You got to live with it. And I'm surprised you've had so much deferred stuff here, a 44-year-old chiller upstairs. I'm surprised it's still working, hasn't blown up or burned the building down. Because if it passes its lifetime, how much can you correct it? I mean, I'm around equipment, and I know this equipment, specialized equipment, fire trucks. I had grow work stuff, and nothing was cheap back then. I'd been out of it since '81 because of the freeze, and you got to live with it. You have to provide the services. I've watched Mr. Durr with Parks and Rec talking about the lights that are on the field, on the ball fields that are 30 years old. Be glad you lasted this long. Get them replaced with LEDs. Because my grandson goes to Winter Springs High School, and they have, he plays in the band, and I attend his football games to watch him, and they've got those LED lights up there, and they really do a lot of flashy dancing up there. So, you know.
Right on.
You got to keep, and I've told this board before and prior boards, you've got to maintain the infrastructure. And I'm not just talking about the fire department, your roads, your water, sewer, libraries, the purchasing and all these other stuff, it's all tied in. And the fire department's made 50 years, finally got a Class 1 recognition, ISO, and I'm sure the report said in the next time we reevaluate, these are things you need to do, these are fire stations you need to build, or equipment you need to buy. They're not, do it. If you want to maintain the ISO 1, you need to do that and keep it up. And she mentioned that I worked out at 23 back. I'm 79 years old. I was in my 20s when we had the Seminole Goldenrod State Fire Department. I gave you the history on that if you want me to, but later on. And people were mad because we split from Orange County at the time because we covered it that way. But I remember telling people this is the best thing to do because taxpayers will pay it whether they moved here 10 years ago or whatever. So keep the budget tight, but you need to keep going to cover your expenses. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Horvath. We appreciate you being here. Appreciate all your service to the county through all the years.
I think John had a rating of 10 when he was working there instead of 1.
Right. Commissioner Lockhart, we have a written comment. Are you willing to read that into the record?
Sure. It's legible handwriting, so I'm happy to do it. I was a little worried when you said, would you read it? I'm like, I don't know, we'll see. So this comment is from Leslie Grubel, 1841 Misty Morn Place, Longwood. And she says, she has quite a few topics she covers. An amazingly thorough presentation by Sheriff Lima. I wanted to ask about any actions to encourage safe storage of weapons in our county, policing education, and activities. I wanted to compliment the force on their action and protection of our neighborhood after the recent tornado. Also, their attendance at Sanford Speaks that is having difficulty with the public sharing to the police about the gang members and others involved in crime in Sanford. I appreciate Andrea Herr visiting our neighborhood after the tornado. Also, thank you, Bob DeLaurie, for allowing the full presentation. That is her comment.
Very good.
Wonderful.
Any other individuals from the public here to speak? All right, seeing none, we'll go for any further board comments. We'll start at far end with Commissioner Lockhart.
I think I'm going to reserve any comments or discussion about next steps for our next discussion. Lot to process.
Sure. Commissioner Constantine?
I concur with what Commissioner Lockhart said. However, I would just, in addition, how's that? Is that better? In addition, though, I think it's important to ask our staff, who have done a fine job giving us alternatives and presentation, that they continue to work with the constitutionals and, of course, our own staff to see, as we continue through this process, if there's anything else that they can find that we can, I'm not asking delay, I'm asking to, as far as, more efficiencies and effectiveness. The one thing I think everybody understands is when we and if we go back to the citizens and tell them we have to increase revenues, we have to look them in the eye and tell them we have done everything we possibly can to put this budget in, in balance. And I say that to the constitutionals and everybody else. You're in this together. We're a team. And I use the word or the phrase shared sacrifice, and I mean it. I think we all we're not asking people to cut their budgets. We're asking people to reduce the increase that they have brought forward to us in this year's budget. The only other thing I'll say is, and this is just an anecdotal, I went across in 5 different locations, the Orange and the Seminole, and the Orange and the Lake, and the Orange and the Volusia County line, just to see the difference between the first gas station I see in Seminole County versus the first gas station I see in Orange County or Lake County or Volusia County. And I will tell you that we were the highest price in all 3, although we had the lowest taxes. So if anybody says that gas tax makes a difference in the price of it, I have not seen that. That's all I'm going to say.
Commissioner Lowry.
There's no additional comments. I think it's all been said, and I think all the additional comments have been said as well.
Commissioner Herr.
I have 2 things. I would personally like to see us have at least 4 more binders for the next meeting. Really, I've now nailed these. That was not enough of a challenge. And I did just pass a note to County Manager Gray to see if we at the county level, please don't rush to an answer, because I know sometimes when I ask questions, you guys all feel compelled to answer. If we at the county level have any ability to give seniors a break. I realize the state didn't do it, but if we do, we should explore that.
Are you talking about?
Yeah, that's my question.
To be returned, to be reported later?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So a similar comment to Commissioner Herr. I do appreciate the electronic versions. I don't particularly care for all these books that are surrounding me. We've cut down half the Ocala National Forest just for the hearing. But I do appreciate the electronic version has 2 numbers on the slides, but it could use a 3rd to match up with some of the other documents that we've got. So very helpful. That goes a long way. As you all know, I prefer my electronic, but I'm forced to take the hard copies because for fear what happens is one of my fellow members or staff will say page 935. Well, that's not 935 in electronics. Now I got to dig through the book. And in this case, I've got 3 booklets to have to refer to, but I get it. So, but thank you very much. I concur with some of the statements that have been made already, that we do want our staff to look at efficiencies, and we do want them to, not stop looking, as well as our constitutionals. But if there's one thing I took away from this whole process and I've tracked it pretty close since the day I arrived here, it is the digging out, the catching up. the ongoing trying to get the status quo. It's hard. It's easy to, from the outside looking in, to say, this was your budget last year, this is your budget this year, go back and work on that and cut it back a little bit further. The real answer, which I'm going to ask staff to give me a full report on, is I want analysis of the entire deferred capital improvements and deferred maintenance in its entirety, so I clearly understand what that looks like and why it has occurred. Because one thing that we are not good stewards of often is when the taxpayer pays for a capital improvement or pays for something to be done, that we then now, 5 or 6 years later, decide, you know what, there's not money in the budget to maintain that, so now we're going to let it go another 5 years to the point where there's no maintaining it. It's got to be replaced completely, which if we'd have maintained it, it would have been less costly on the taxpayers. I concur with what Mr. Hyde has said, and although I'm not quite a senior citizen, but I guess it depends whether it's ARP or ARPA or whoever they are, ARP defines it. But I will tell you, even at my age, as I look and have discussion with my family and what I ultimately will do when I get to the point where I decide I'm no longer going to work, there are going to be some tough questions whether I live here or not. And that's because of the cost of the taxes, the cost of the insurance. On one hand, that's good. I've seen my investment grow, from my property purchases. But on the downside, as you get into a retirement situation, you always worry about outliving your money. And so you have to carefully plan for that. So whether you decide you can afford to live here, and I think that's a great deal of questions as I talk to some of the older people in our community, that's one of their major concerns. Can they continue to afford to live here? They love it here. Their family is here. They did business here or own businesses here. And now they have that tough decision to move away from their family, move away from everything they've ever known, maybe a county or 2 or 3 over, or even outside of the state. So it's important that we understand that and be sensitive to that, and I think we all are. But at the end of the day, as we ask our staff to continue to cut the budget that they've already worked on, which we asked them to do at our original meeting this year at our retreat, and thank you for the hard work, and thank you to the county manager for making sure that got done, we're still digging out. We're still kind of trying to catch up, so keep that in mind. So thank you all very much. We sincerely appreciate it. I know it's been a long day. I appreciate the public's patience with us. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, Commissioner Lockhart, Commissioner Laurie.
2 questions. Can you bring back, maybe just individually, what a CPI increase would look like for raises, and find out what the state is doing for their employees? I think Social Security COLA adjustment they're predicting for 2026 is going to be in like the 2.5% range. I think when you hear a senior talking about a fixed income, standing in solidarity perhaps with seniors is one of the best things we could do. I'm not sure that we can give them any more. I don't know what we could do, but the recurring costs of salaries and benefits is going to hurt this organization. Not hurt. That's not the right word. It is going to have greater financial repercussions moving forward than the one-time capital improvements that need to be done. So while we're talking about, trying to, perhaps restrain or restrict, delayed projects, that really is not where we are spending the most of our money. And so if I would love to pay our staff and give everyone the absolute highest increases that we could possibly give. I would ask that whatever we do, that the constitutionals, not necessarily the badged or the ones that are certainly under union contracts, that anyone who would be considered a, what's the class of employee? Well, you're not a, you're not a special risk class, but that all of the entities across this county work together to have the same raise, because we're all working from the same pool. And I think that's kind of something we've worked on doing in the past with our constitutionals, and I'd like to see maybe if some of those conversations could be had. So I lied, I said I wasn't gonna, but that popped into my head while we were talking.
Mr. Delory.
Thank you, Commissioner, Mr. Chairman. When you talked about the elderly, aging in place is extremely important. We all know that. We all have either parents or friends and family members. They've invested in this community just like everyone else, and it's important that we help them to allow them to continue to age in place. I like the comment that Commissioner Hurd said, is there anything that we can do? I think that's extremely important. But, if we could make sure, and I think that Commissioner, not Lockhart, but Constantine talked about with the going across the different counties and the gas tax. There is something there that's true. But at the other aspect of it, I say that because we really need to take a hard look at, raising the millage rate so that, the people that are on fixed incomes, not picking on Bill Hyde, but, Bill made a good point. It's very difficult, and even though we keep the millage flat, what are those things? Can we look at services and, maybe the things that we've been assuming all these years from the cities, we need to be charging people the fair rate. These are the things that we need to be looking at to keep that millage rate as low as possible. And, I can see some point and some validity to what Commissioner Constantine talked about. But at the same token, I think we need to really make a conscious effort to make sure that we're allowing our aging population or our vulnerable population, whoever they are, to remain here and not force them out. And raising the millage rate is extremely difficult, and I don't take that lightly. And I think that we need to really be looking at that.
Mr. Hurd?
I guess I'm just going to follow the pack today. If we're going to look at salaries, we need to look at benefits, just because that's the second line item up there, and the increase in that has been significant, and we haven't touched the benefit package in years. And Darren just sighed really loud. He did a Commissioner Lockhart sigh. I felt it from over here when I used to sit next to her. And I can tell you that the benefit plans are changing around the state fairly rapidly. I think ours was rich 25 years ago. It's still extremely rich. Now, I'm also going to telegraph this to the employees. If you decide that because I said that, you're going to run out and get every single thing done to you that's been suggested by any doctor, that's only going to make it worse. So don't do that, because there would be nothing drastic that had to happen, but that area should be tended to every year. And I just throw that out there.
Anything else? Just what I appreciate all the comments, and I have told you all this individually and our staff. As a manager, I never want to bring anything like this to you all. So this is something, as you all know, that we've been digging out the county for a decade or more, and it's just come to a point where we can't kick it down the road anymore. And so I appreciate the comment Commissioner Lockhart that you made too, that if we're going to do any type of reductions with staff, is that we do it across the board with all the constitutionals, because doing it on the backs of the departments, and we've done it for years, and you've seen the highest costs in what our expenses are in our general fund, our facilities, and parks and recreation and IT. You see where we're the weakest in this county is in facilities and our IT area. And because we have taken the brunt, I say we, and I've only been here 2 years, but I've seen the past, we've taken the brunt on the backs of a lot here. So I appreciate that, and definitely I can work with all the constitutionals and see what we can come up with and bring back to the board.
But I also think you should be working with the 7 cities, too.
No, we're talking about the budget, our
About
budget.
the budget.
I understand that, but there are things that they should be charged.
But I think we've all alluded to it at some point or another. It's akin to being the parent. You want to make sure all the family members are clothed, have good shoes, everything is good to go. We're the last ones to put new clothes on or buy new shoes here at the County Services Building and under the BCC. And that's been, as I watch it and look out there, that's been the custom. Not saying that's good, bad, or indifferent, it's just a fact.
And our house gets dilapidated while
right.
the other houses have come very nice and pretty.
That's right. But again, we are team players with our constitutionals and then working together, including our 7 cities. And I suspect we'll find the path. Good people working together with good intentions, and being sensitive to our residents and our taxpayers, who at the end of the day demand and quite frankly deserve the quality of life that they've been provided and continue to be provided. And it's our job to make sure they continue to get that level of service in the best fashion that we can for the best price we can. So, anyway, is there anything else good for the good of the order? Seeing none, we shall be adjourned. Thank you all very much.